Welcome. Today's topic is, let me get the official title, How the LCG Succeeds. Last week was very aggressively titled, There is no LCG model. I'm not involved in that decision.
But look at the views. I mean, we got the clicks.
It did work. So
we got the clicks.
If you deliver the results. Anyways, we had a conversation last week about the model and the struggles it has. We'll come back to that in a second because there was a ton of conversation in the industry discussion channel of our Discord.
Yeah.
Full. Live stream last week. The chat was crazy full. The comments on the video afterwards, full. A lot of people have a lot of opinions. A lot of people hate TCG model. A lot of people love the LCG model and want to see it work. They're
similar,
etc. So that's the topic. But before we get to the topic, we're going to cover the news for any of the games we support, and also then a little bit of Covenant news, and then we'll go back to the topic.
Love it.
That's
a great
the plan.
Intro.
All right.
Can we rate Zach's intro today?
Yeah.
Is that a 0 to 5? What is the
2 out of 5 would never listen again.
If you're I would say 4 to 5 would be I'm intrigued enough to stay on the live stream.
Yeah, and if you want to leave us an actual review and you're listening to this audio file on a podcasting platform, leave a review.
Where does that go? Apple or iTunes?
Depends on where you're listening to it.
Can you review us on all the different services have separate reviews?
I know Apple you can review on. I think Spotify has reviews as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'd just be curious to know, audio listeners, how you're feeling at this point.
Also, I got to tell you guys. So it was like, what was it, like a few months ago, whenever it finally broke, the dam finally broke, and it was like, there was like 3 Trustpilot reviews that were like 1 star over the course of like 4 or 5 years, because of various collisions of policy and things that we didn't anticipate, and things went wrong, and there's all sorts of reasons for that. Anyway, it's driving me crazy for many years. I saw it again, and I added the Discord. Everyone on the Discord, hey.
Yesterday you did that.
No, this was months ago, many months ago.
Yeah.
And it was like, yo, these Trustpilot reviews have got me down. I don't think... What? Yo.
Fellow street youths.
I've got, so it's like, I don't think we're 1 star. Like, that's not what the vibe I'm getting from everyone else's commentary. So, hey, can y'all throw your opinions over there on the Trustpilot site? Because I don't want to get downgraded for them. Anyway, then like hundreds of people did that, which is absurd and is awesome. Yeah, and the reviews were so cool and awesome and lovely. But then there were some SEO people that were like, oh, well, that's not going to work because, they're waiting to see that you're brigading their review site. And to those SEO experts, I would say you're wrong. You were wrong. It's fine. And it's sitting up there. And we're now on the best game website on Trustpilot's internet.
On the internet. Google it.
We're on the list of best game site amid all of the gambling sites.
That's another place you could leave us a review. I don't know why we got into a review prompting.
Don't do Trustpilot. But we have enough there. That's great. You guys just crushed it.
The reason you were mentioning this is you did actually tag everyone yesterday.
I did do that.
To segue into the news,
why
did you tag everyone yesterday on the Discord?
I tagged everybody yesterday because we have launched a new product. It's our favorite kind of product that actually loses us money. This is
We're good at it.
Preview pack.
We are good at that.
Preview pack 2026. I think, and
I'm gonna save this for not.
I suppose it's fair to say we're authentic, right? Isn't that what we're doing?
I mean, you are what you are.
We kind of made we're kind of decided maybe once a year we'll do one of these with all the games. So everybody can come in and try all the games in the catalog. And so we decided to name it 2026 fairly late in the process. But I think that is an indicator. It's not that that's the only time we would do preview decks, et cetera, but that I think we would like a yearly release where you can try all the games, the indie games that we've got.
At least any of the games that we work with that want to do it.
Yeah.
That's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And we're in, as Jonathan is want to say a lot recently, an experimentation phase. So we'll see how this one goes. And let me tell you, it's gone really well.
Yeah,
there's a ton of interest. So here's what's in the preview pack. You get the preview decks for Gudnak. This is 2 actually fully playable decks. It actually comes with. You want to open this while I'm talking?
Yeah.
So it comes with a little paper mat, which matters because this is a game where the board.
We should probably say that on the product.
Actually matters. I think it. Anyways,
we don't have to though,
because it's free.
It's free and like everyone's buying them anyway.
And these are it's literally just 2
Be a little
decks.
surprised.
Pretty
Whatever
crazy.
happened to surprise in the world?
I do like surprise.
Yeah, you want some free stuff? Sure.
So we have the Gudnak preview deck. And Steven attempting to open it with a knife. There's also the Alpha Class preview deck, which is Magnate versus Conquest. It's 2 30-card preview decks with the contenders that you need to do that. And we have 2 preview decks for Warlord recently released. So these are 2. They originally did these as like print and plays that you could do on the thing. And these are the Deverinians and the Mercenaries decks. But basically, it's $0 plus shipping. You can buy the preview pack. Comes in this box.
Man, Gudnak crushed this.
And then you pay shipping. And then you get to try these 3 games that we happen to think are incredible. So if you've ever been curious about these games, this is the mat I want to show.
Wow, this is
a great way to try it.
Legit.
Yeah, it's legit. It's full Gudnak deck.
You got the Ever King in there. You got all of them.
Like,
and you got all your... This is incredible.
Look at this little...
Oh, it's so...
it actually, it really matters for Gudnak. So, you know, like... let me grab my... Where's my character?
The Ever King? That's right here.
No, from this deck. That's very funny.
Wait, you have a character? You're in the... Oh,
no. I'm looking for my level 3 is what I meant.
Oh, you're level 3. Got
my actual unique like level 3. Let me find which one it is. It's such a centerpiece. Oh, okay, I was gonna say it's missing. Such a centerpiece of these decks is your character specific level 3.
Yeah.
That it feels like it's the character of your deck.
Yeah.
Like when I play a deck, that's the Ever King deck. Right?
It is.
And this is the Elven Valkyrie deck.
I love that Elven Valkyrie.
She's
perfect.
Sick.
Perfect card.
Yeah. Anyways, fully playable deck. You got the little mat because the 3x3 grid and Gudnak very much matters. So it's nice that they included that. And then, of course, the 2 decks for Alpha Clash and Warlord. Great way to try these games. Huge fan of all 3. And those are now available, currently available. I didn't think I would actually...
at least...
While we're live.
Yeah, now.
That's what I'm saying.
But I don't know that they will... They're like... the 70% are gone?
Yep. And... we announced them about a day ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is our first time talking about it live.
Here's a business question for everybody that I'm curious about, because we were kind of talking about this yesterday. And there's a principle here, but there's also a practical reality. If you were Covenant, would you reveal the number of preview decks that you have sent out for free to players in 24 hours? Because there's a part of me that wants to say that number, and it's a part of me that wants to never say anything.
Yeah, for me, it's a sense of, I think generally speaking, and this is going to be ironic because of what we're doing right now. I'm a pretty private person, but not because I'm not willing to share. But you know, okay. So when you are at like let's say you're at a social event, you run into someone you haven't seen in like 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Like the amount of genuinely personal information I'm going to just proactively share in that exchange is not very high.
Yeah, 0. Almost.
I'll be friendly. We can chat. We can catch up. But I'm not going to be like, here's what we're struggling through at work. And like, we've recently done this. And here's all my achievements. And here's all the stuff that we've done. Yeah. So, you know,
Flasher,
like,
literally.
But like, there are some people I know. And I think they're genuine and authentic in this where I'm thinking of one person in particular I won't name. But, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I published my 3rd book last year and like sales of it were really good and really strong and they just like volunteer it.
Yeah.
Like no prompt, no whatever. You say, hey, how you doing? It's like, oh, really good. New York Times bestselling author, et cetera. So, yeah. That's not me as a person. So I'm just not inclined to share that sort of information individually.
But that's why we need marketing.
Yeah, totally. I'm a weird dichotomy of like excellent in some ways at marketing and horrible at most ways.
You and I are both pretty private, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm a more of a showman, but it's very voluntary. Like it's not. It's like it's on purpose. Like there's an extra version that I can summon, but like it's not a natural state.
Well, I can definitely be sociable, but even then,
that's debatable.
It's not like. Thank you. It's not like confidence going through the roof here.
Tell me the last time you felt like you were being sociable, and I'll give you.
I think there's a way to be sociable that has nothing to do with any information about you as an individual or achievements or your family or like that kind of stuff. And it's not even, again, if someone asks me, "Hey, how's your mom?" I'm not hiding it,
right?
But I'm not volunteering what's that kind of stuff. If something is going on with my mom,
I would love to know what's going on with your mom live on camera.
I can tell you, she's engaged. That's weird. That's genuinely weird. But I think she's good. She's living her best life. You know?
She does seem she's
lots of dogs.
She's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like a teenager again?
I feel like so my dad passed in 2020. And so I think it was kind of a weird she was already sort of in a transitionary phase. Your grandma, you don't have any kids at home. And so there's a lot of identity as a parent tied up in that.
Yeah.
And she hadn't really stuck the landing yet.
Yeah.
And then this sort of just forces, the change is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of just forces you into figuring things out.
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, actually, it's you and you.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with your life?
What
What
do
do you
you
want to
wanna
do? What do you want to do with your time?
Runway.
You don't have any pressure. You know, like when you're married, you're immediately split 50-50. Or depending on the situation, 90-10 on like what you're even doing, where you're living, what you're spending your time doing, how you approach purchases, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think she's, all things considered, doing pretty good.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm a big fan of your mother.
See, look, I'm willing to share, but I would never just offer that.
I wish for her success and happiness.
I do too. Anyways, preview decks are available. Only other thing on those 3 games that I really want to mention is our friends over at Gudnak got a shout out from our friend over at Stonemeyer.
Yeah,
he did a top 10 expandable games video.
Did you see his list of not played expandable games though?
As large.
That gave away the ghost.
But that's what I mean. He's just saying here's my top 10.
Yeah,
which is only based on your context. And it was just cool to see Gudnak showing up there because I went on Jamie's channel a year and a half. And one of the games I talked about was Gudnak. He was asked my favorite mechanic from each of those. He has a series of videos that is his favorite mechanic from X. And he sometimes brings on a guest to talk about games that he's not as familiar with. So it was just cool to see, presumably, he, since that time, because he hadn't heard of Gudnak, just explored it in some way, played it, and not only played it, but enjoyed it. And that's cool, because I assume the majority of what he's playing is board games. But I also know, I think his number 1 was Magic. So he's
safe,
like most people, got exposed to the industry probably heavily Magic. Like I know he plays Commander, but I don't know how he got into Magic.
Apparently, that is Magic these days. Also, that's a really long-winded story to take credit for getting Gudnak mentioned on Jamie's.
You know,
very good job.
Yeah, see,
that's why you don't.
Not about me. Private person. Not about me. Now I'm gonna shut down.
Humility.
That's not how I meant it. I'm just saying it was cool to see. Like it's sort of like. I don't know, when you get really into something and you tell someone about it, most of the time it's like, oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. Oh, I'll listen to that or I'll watch that.
But if you're like, oh man, this series is really good, and then the next time you see them, they're like talking about that series, it's like, hey,
that is true.
Okay, it did connect. That's awesome.
It's a point of connection. Yeah, I dig you on that.
Anyways.
Cool. What are you guys saying about should we reveal the thing or not?
They were saying, hey, look, I have audio now.
Hey, Gravecrawler said, hopefully EU friendly happens one day. You wouldn't believe how much that is probably happening soon.
Now that is a level of transparency.
That's the kind of transparency
I said probably, and that you wouldn't believe it. So those are 2 very wiggly words.
Most people were saying that the exact number doesn't need to be shared, but you could share like tens or thousands or hundreds of thousands as far as how many happen.
I was watching a video about this at some point where it was essentially saying in most cases,
you just have,
if you're trying to describe how much of something, like the scale of something, you just worry in zeros, where it's like, is it closer to 10 or 100 or 100 or 1,000?
Yeah.
If you're trying to estimate, like as an example, if we were trying to estimate how many of these would sell in the first week, is it 10 or 100? It's like, well, or is it 1,000 or is it 10,000? And it's like at some point you're like, that's way too many.
Yeah.
And then you start like honing in on it. Anyways, it's more than 1,000.
Shannon and I have this conversation often. You know, it'll be like, how much do you think that's going to cost? I'll be like, I have no idea. It's like
$1, $10.
Okay, let's go from 0, or is it closer to 10,000 or 100? And it's like, oh, it's closer to 100. It's like, okay, well, you have some idea then.
That's helpful.
Yeah, but we all communicate differently. Some of us logically, and some of us emotionally. Like good, like not bad, but good emotionally.
Bennett here on chat, Steven, the king of wiggly words. Steven Wiggly Words Woolley has a nice.
That's a pretty good
www.
Yeah, you can't hold me. I have
3 dubs.
I am eventually going to run for president. And I'm going to make mailboxes private.
I would love it. I think you would make mailboxes private and you get rid of daylight savings.
Yeah.
It'd be a universally popular president.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, it's the best platform we've got these days. What did everyone say? Did you say that?
Someone said, give us a 10.
Sharing on the Discord. Tommy saying
Discord
is
or
best.
do like kind of general ballpark estimates.
Okay. It's over 1,000.
Yeah.
We can give him the Dragon Ball Z.
How about that
theory?
Over 1,000, under 10,000.
Over 1,000, under 10,000. There you go.
That's a window.
The thing
That's more than
we did
people
preview
did
decks
before.
last year for Hub World before their campaign, and they decided to reveal that there were 5,000 sets of those that shipped. And people seem to enjoy that conversation and that knowledge was out there. I don't know if it matters. I'm just generally I lean more conservative and private.
Well, maybe we
that's
should
wrong.
just
Maybe
we
we'll
just
hire
move on,
someone.
so it's not awkward.
Well,
Yeah, let's do it.
do you think it's the card player instincts? Do you think it's like
You're holding the freaking
I'm
lab like
authentic.
Andrew
I'm
Callaghan over
authentic
here.
now.
Channel
I'm authentic.
5 Jonathan.
I'm
dude.
authentic.
Nah, he's a zoomer.
I'm a zoomer.
This
I'm
is what the
zooming.
Gen
Look at me,
Zs
I'm
do.
zooming.
Can you attach it to like a credit card?
Yeah.
Or a
Hold on,
business
hold
card?
on, hold on, yeah, I got that.
If you even know what that is.
Oh my
You-
gosh, we're so in touch.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, the
I-
viewership is spiking. I can hear the
There
19-year-olds
are-
coming in.
They're
like, oh
they're-
man, someone's holding.
the measuring
attached to
tape is
something
really
strange right
is
now.
really doing it. There are some young
Zoomer, this old house mixed together.
there's some 20-something
No, I was about to
content
show her how to
creators
watch.
that I certainly follow that do that,
Yeah,
which is
there's that guy on the subway that does that.
Subway takes.
Subway
Correct.
takes. Yeah.
that I mean it's right there in the name. It's like putting
Yeah.
Covenant in front of it.
Why are we doing all of this when we could just
Yeah.
do that? Something.
I'm you have to ask yourself something. Okay,
We're at a 3 out of 5 in interest at this point for me even right now. So I think the
Yeah.
audience is
we're gonna
flocking.
moving on. Next up we have Arkham Horror. This week the investigator decks are releasing,
That's right.
and we were not allocated.
That's right.
So
Thank you,
breathe easy.
Asmodee.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I hope nobody else is either, but I do think
I don't know. I was seeing some signals. Like I think it is.
it
rough
is
out
allocated.
there.
It is allocated. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
allocated.
And then
We squeaked through.
next up on the list, we have the Flesh and Blood TCG announcing a Mastery Pack. They also had a
Warrior.
Pro Tour, which is where they announce these kind of things. Warrior, yeah.
Warrior Mastery Pack. Everybody should know. So the booster box subscription for Flesh and Blood is for booster boxes only. It is not for Mastery Packs. It did not serve the Guardian Mastery Pack, which I'm really proud of my work on the Guardian Mastery Pack, if I'm being honest. Because in the bullets, I don't know if anybody noticed, but the last bullet point on the details looks like a boat, which I thought was very funny. Because it looks like a little longboat. you
Yeah,
know?
it does
And
look like a little.
Nobody
boat.
said anything about it, but I think it increased sales.
Where would they say something about it though? You know,
Well, here.
I assume what would happen
Discord, maybe.
is like someone would read it, kind of chuckle, and move on.
That's the point. Not move on, buy it.
well,
and they would
yeah,
be like,
move
"Ah,
on with the process.
A
purchasing.
product and a joke? Crazy value.
The value. I thought you were gonna say your opening was like kind of serious, and it's like, hey, I think everyone should know. I thought you were gonna say all of these cards are going to attack for 3 and block for 3 because they're warrior.
You wouldn't believe how many threes.
Yeah,
you're
and
about
there's
to
gonna
get
be
in this
gear
game.
with
Yeah.
armor. It's gonna be heavy
Now,
armor.
there might be a 3.5 in there, but it'll be if you are dual wielding swords, and if it is the last turn of the game, and if you have pitched 3 reds this turn.
Hold on,
3.5 value, baby.
and all of that, and only if it's a Tuesday.
And if you buffed your weapon, yeah, it's a Tuesday.
No, or maybe I should say a fabulous Wednesday.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a new Master Pack product coming down the pike, right? It's the pike, right? Not the pipe. The pike coming down the pike.
I would say,
So you can pre-order it on our website.
does
if
anyone
you're
out there
interested.
know?
It's pike.
If I had to guess, it'd say pipe.
Like a turnpike.
We're coming down the pipe, like things that go down pipes.
Yeah. That is like Mario.
Yeah, yeah, which is like 80% of our education, you know.
Warrior Mastery Pack, but there is also still the pre-order for the booster box. So I didn't really know how to order those on the page.
I see.
And so we put the most recent release on the top. So if you're looking for Warrior Mastery Pack, it's the second listing on the page, not the
Okay.
first.
So you can pre-order the next booster box. You can also pre-order the Mastery Pack.
Yeah.
If you have had a subscription already, when we added the pre-order for the booster box, it would have automatically created a pre-order for you.
And you got an email about it.
And you got an email.
Smooth
So
system.
we're
It's right
off to the
there.
races.
Yeah.
All right. And then last but not least is Covenant-related news. We already talked about the preview pack. And the only other thing I had to note that's particularly notable is we filmed more gameplay today. We're still exploring that format.
We have not stopped filming gameplay.
Yeah, man. We recorded commentary last week. We recorded new gameplay. Spoiler, it was a game I've never played before.
That's right. Me neither.
Imagination.
Yeah, it was.
So we're playing some jazz.
Imagination.
Yeah,
man.
talk about being transparent. Look at me. Just crazy transparency.
I love it.
Will it ever even go anywhere? Will we use it? It's hard to say.
We'll use it.
We'll use it.
It's a
We'll
great
use it.
game, actually.
I
Maybe
agree.
that should be a part of the naming conventions. Transparency, something or other. Like,
Or we can name it after John's favorite color. Which is also transparent somehow.
it's one of those things you just you can never live it down. And unfortunately, it's written in stone.
It's written in stone. I said it once, and
you said it. You can't. That's the problem with saying things out loud.
I tried to say
that's why I'm conservative in private.
You can't share anything.
Yeah. But honestly, your second answer is actually probably yellow, right?
Yeah, yellow.
Which is the least popular color of humans who choose actual colors.
It's definitely my least. It's one of the few colors I dislike.
Wow. Ouch.
Like, and
yellow taking heat.
Yeah, seriously. No, catching
like
strays.
Sunlight.
You like staring at the sun?
Anything that is yellow, like even just look at these.
Mm-hmm. Yellow and red goes together. What about McDonald's?
Can you top down me real quick? These are tokens from Earthborn.
My notes.
These three colors, I have a favorite and
It's
a second
blue.
favorite.
Yeah.
But there's one of these colors that I actually just would be okay if it wasn't here. It's yellow.
It is legitimately the least popular color.
Do you have your favorite colors locked down? Because it's going to become real important.
It has to be blue,
about
right?
the next year.
It's blue for sure.
That's like the first
it's blue
fact
and
your
red,
kid
man. It's blue and red. That's the only reason our relationship works.
What's going to be with our children?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
We got to paint the kids?
Yeah, you got to paint the kids.
I have a favorite color.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Me too. It's either black or red. I mean, is black a color?
I think depending on which spectrum you're talking about and materiality and stuff, yeah.
Wow, we've done this before.
I know. It's
That's crazy. Everything's the same.
Paint versus fabric. Anyways, all that to say.
19 years.
Anyway, so that's happening.
19 years.
At some point, we'll start posting, and when we do, I'll be very curious to hear how people experience that because I'm excited about it.
Peter's got a good question. Are you interested in any way in Onward by Skytear Games? So we played Onward at Essen Spiel.
I own Onward.
And you own Onward, so there's some interest.
Good friend Eric Wainwright did a lot of work on Onward, and Giacomo. I love Giacomo and the whole Skytear team.
Ricardo's still doing it too, right? So
Ricardo stepped away for a while.
Okay.
He recently
did he decide to get money again?
I don't even know if it's public.
Okay, let's not even say it.
Anyways, it's too late. He came back. I think it's public.
Okay. But he returned, so I guess
I don't think it matters that much. Any point is, huge fan of Giacomo.
Giacomo, delete contact.
Good friend Eric worked a lot on that, and we played at Essen. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think if you're looking for something that emulates the MOBA feel on a board, it's the closest that I've experienced for sure. But I'm not an expert. There's a few games of those that I haven't played.
I also feel like if you liked Skytear and you want to play it with people that aren't deep into Skytear, it's an amazing refinement on that whole system.
Well, and Skytear kind of gets into the LCG conversation too, because effectively the same thing, because that was a card game.
Well, hot dang, what a second segue.
Are we in? Are we done? Are we going?
That's the end of the news. Now
all right, everybody. Let's have a chat about LCGs again.
I just want to be clear here before we get into this.
Jonathan's favorite color?
I am a passenger in this car. Steven is the driver.
The driver didn't know he was driving today.
Well, now he does. So we're in a better place than we expected.
Great.
I think Jonathan's also got comments he's going to pull up. And
I like when Zach plans the podcast live when it's happening. That's my favorite thing.
So here's the deal. You know what? I think a interesting place to start.
I actually do know how I want to start it.
Well, you posted a summary in Discord because the industry discussion channel was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, you were like, here's the 9 points I pulled away after like 3 days of conversation.
Yeah, because I'm a giant sieve for information, basically.
Yeah, and that was a really good point. I think.
Should I look that up?
I mean, I think it would be good to see it. Yeah.
Okay.
The thing for me is I feel like if I could summarize my ultimate point from last week that I wanted to make is that fundamentally the LCG model compared to a TCG makes significantly less money. And there are implications from that I think a lot of people making them or playing them or trying to support them oftentimes don't acknowledge or accept.
Can we also put the caveat in here that there are a lot of TCGs that make significantly less money than LCGs because they die rather instantly?
For sure.
And that is not a risk that the LCG really has to the same degree. If your first set just tanks, your game is over as a TCG. Nobody wants to.
I mean, once the air is let out of the collectability balloon, it's hard to regain it. But genuinely,
that's
like,
the opposite of flat, by the way.
It's not
to answer our question from earlier.
It's not. To me, it's not even, and that's part of this conversation. It's not that an LCG model can't work or succeed. It's just that I think you have to acknowledge what the non-collectible expendable model means, and set realistic expectations. And your strategy as a product fundamentally needs to be different and on a grand scale than a TCG for me.
Yes, and that's what I think we want to talk about today.
Yes. So
I'm with it.
you want me to find your comment while you're
You can find the comment, if you want to. Sure, I'll self-aggrandize third party here. Here's something that is really weird to me that is probably a great place to start because it is historically relevant. But I had never looked up the beginning of trading cards. Why had I never done that? I've been doing this for 1,000 years and I never even knew.
I feel like we talked about this at some point.
Well, that's true. The old memory is not what it used to be, and it didn't start out strong.
But
I've been attacking it ever since.
It was like, I feel like we were talking about it as an example of where this might have come from. Like at a random Adepticon on a podcast with DC. Like someone we were talking to
hotel room,
was like offhandedly mentioning collectible. Anyways, well,
all right. So let's, just real quick, and it was the little Google summary. So 90% chance of accuracy. This seems like information that is easy for a robot to kind of compile.
Well, now we have a bunch of humans that will tell us if we're wrong.
They'll help. So this whole thing started with cigarettes, as so many things have, which is that the packs of cigarettes needed some kind of structure to them to prevent them from getting squished in transport, right, to the various stores. So they put hard pieces of cardboard in the cigarette packs to make sure that they were safe. And then one company, it doesn't matter who it was, started making that piece of cardboard basically collectible by putting stuff on it. So they started putting like baseball players on this hard piece of cardboard. And so you would open your pack of cigarettes and then you'd be like, oh, it's Babe Ruth or whatever. This is in the 1800s. This is the late 1800s. Crazy. Late 1800s. So what they found was that made people started collecting those things, and that made the brand more popular compared to other cigarettes because people wanted to get the little prize inside the pack.
Like Cracker Jack.
Yeah, man, and that kind of starts the whole thing of putting stuff in stuff to make it more attractive. Maybe it was going on before that. I'm no Industrial Revolution expert. But then it transferred from there primarily to gum because gum was the same problem. They have a soft product in a pack and they need to keep it rigid. And so they started putting cards in the gum packages with celebrities and athletes and these kinds of things. And then I think it was post-war, World War II, whenever Topps and all these, the people that we kind of associate with these things, they started just making boxes of the cards only. And that was baseball cards. And so then you have baseball cards and athletes and stuff. And people started collecting the cards and they wanted to have their favorite team and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I know Babe Ruth was after the 1800s. Was baseball invented in the 1800s? I'm just kidding. Don't. All
right, so this is where we go back to the value of being
high engagement,
private with your thoughts.
No, it's a high engagement.
There it is. I thought isn't Babe Ruth from the 1700s? He used to throw around with Alexander Hamilton.
They didn't even know how to point in the 1700s, so it couldn't have been then. Anyway, these are good jokes, but after the war, you started getting boxes of straight up just cardboard cards, and that kicked off the whole thing. And obviously, it was successful enough to where people were buying them and people were collecting them. My dad to this day collects baseball cards and football cards. And then in the 90s, basically it was like, well, what if these cards could battle each other? And that's basically Magic the Gathering. And so we're in a kind of 40 years into that, 35, whatever, 40 years into what if the trading cards could also fight phase of trading cards. And then it was deck building and all this kind of stuff. And so there's this long history of collecting cards that had nothing to do with playing at all for 100 plus 200 years, basically. 200 years. Wait, 1890, 1990, 100 years. 100 years. But 1800 to 2000 would be 200, but but it's then 1890, so you got to carry the one. So 100 years of people just collecting the cards, starting with cigarettes and ending in packs of cards. And then only fairly recently in cardboard card history are we actually caring about playing with them. And many of the cards being produced today still are not those kinds of cards. They're just raw, collectible baseball, football, etc. cards. So it would make sense to me in that context that collecting of cards is a natural thing that we should not be so surprised as a part of the hobby that we're in, and why TCGs and collecting is a part of this whole process, which players of card games, typically being players first of games, may not even understand or appreciate the historical reality there, and are like, why would you need to buy all of these crazy excess cards just to get the cards you need to play the game? It's like, you don't understand, like, you're the outlier. Like, you're the rare thing, and everybody else has been buying these things for no reason except to look at them and collect them for 100 plus years.
And you could see how someone new to the space would think that, because it's a game.
Yeah, well, if I'm like a board gamer and I got into board games, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go play a card game, and then it's like, I got to do what? It would make no sense. And to many, it still does not make sense. So keep fast forwarding from Magic into, let's say, the FFG living card game era. And what my theory is that you had the Magic cards and the collectability there, and then also the fighting of the decks and stuff. And, you know, the old row about how Richard Garfield's intent with Magic was like everybody's deck is all different and nobody knows who's got a dragon and a swamp creature and all this kind of stuff. And then people lost their freaking minds, and then they started buying all of the cards so that they could have all of the cards to play and to build decks with. And so then they had full collections, and they had 1 of everything, 2 of everything, 8 of everything. And that was not really the intention of the model up front, but it got so successful that there was a lot of people that just wanted to have everything. And those people that want to have everything, and they want to build decks, and they want to play the game as much as possible, are the people most served by the LCG format, strictly. Because what the LCG, and again, the colloquial LCG format, is allowing here is full collection, constructed format card game for a lower price and an easier acquisition step. You pay money, you click a button, a box comes your way, it has everything you need. So the challenge with LCGs to me is that how many people are out there that actually are that deep into wanting to do that with a TCG that then would be converted to the LCG because it's easier to do it with this format. And I think there's 2 primary audiences. There's that one, which is the full collection constructed player. And I actually think that's a pretty rare player in a TCG world. And then you also have the player who has ethical or sustainability concerns about cracking packs and gambling and all of that. And they want to access the card game in any way that they can, but they don't want to have to access it by cracking packs and participating in that economy. And so you get them also. Now you lose limited, you lose collecting, you lose the slab guys, you lose. That's like chance on chance, because now you get random cards, and then you take your random cards and you send them into a grading service, and you see what grades you get as another little could be a 10, could be a 9, could be an 8. I'm gonna crack.
How good was the one?
And then I'm gonna crack the slab, and I'm gonna send it in again to try to get a better score. So you're still.
I was watching a video this weekend that was kind of detailing. There's a lot of drama going on with grading.
Oh yeah,
right now. That's a separate topic. Easy.
I would love to just talk about grading.
Well, you want to add that to the list? You want to talk about it right now?
I think it's crazy, like genuine crazy.
I'll just send you this video.
Okay,
I may post it in the industry.
My mind has been changed before.
Well, it's not even. Here we are getting into it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm not getting into it.
Put it in the big screen next round. And
beyond whether or not it makes sense at all.
Well, a lot of this doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the abstraction layer here of like we're so many degrees in.
Yeah. Like,
does it ever make, like, even graded or not? Like, why are we doing it? As an example, I think this is
why are we doing it?
If you're just coming in as a I don't know, say just like normal perspective. It's like, do you want to pay $50 for this stack of cards that you know exactly what you're getting, or do you want to pay $100 for random cards and you might need to do that 20 times?
Yeah.
And sometimes people pay $1,000 for a single card. Like, it's all. This is insane.
Yeah.
To a degree, which we'll come back to. But point of it, the video I watched essentially framed up the role grading has had, especially in the history of Pokemon, and what has happened, especially in the past 6 years, with that game. and some ethical concerns and or issues with the fact of how much control the company that owns the grading companies. There's one company that owns PSA and BGS, which are the two biggest. It's like 90% of the grading is coming from them. And they also have incentives where they make money based on how much something is valued as. Right. And if it's a higher grade and it sells, they'll make more money. Even the way they charge is like you pay X to get it graded, but it's a value range. And if it ends up being worth more than that, they charge you more to grade the higher end, higher level stuff. And it's like, anyways.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's a financial incentive to skew reality.
That's a separate thing. But
it's never happened before.
Anyway,
you lose the graders.
Yeah.
So you lose the graders. You lose the limited players. That's a massive group. You also lose that. And here's the other thing. You lose the competitive players. This is not just competitive players would prefer this format. You lose the competitive players who just buy a deck and play in the tournament. Like, that's also a way that a lot of people engage with TCGs. The I need all the cards player is actually, it's pretty, I mean, it's kind of, you're kind of that guy, but like it's pretty small of a slice of the whole TCG audience.
It is small and it's not normal.
Yeah.
Like so a TCG puts out enough cards at a price point that it's crazy to even think that most people would own everything.
Right.
But I do think a lot of people coming from the LCG 2010s came into TCGs, like this whole next era of TCGs, with that energy.
Like, this is the only way for me to play an active card game, and I have to do this, and I hate it.
Yeah, either I didn't get in because it's expensive to get a playset, or I'm a playset person now. And I
gotta do it.
When I got into LCGs in 2012, I was 20, and now I'm 35 with a job. And it's like, well, I mean, I could have a playset.
Anything possible.
This is great.
How many hours?
Anyways, but I think you're right. And one thing I want to add before we carry on, the LCGs in the 2010s were being introduced in an era where TCGs weren't really coming out.
Yes, that's important. You said that last time. I think that's really important. The Discord backed you up on that.
Yeah, I think it's really important that it was new, innovative card games in an era when you didn't see innovative card games. And it was innovative card games with an innovative model. So there was a lot of natural interest.
Yeah.
Any player that didn't want to play Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Had something to play.
That's why Keyforge was such a sensation too, because new model, new energy.
100%.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that's
we ask questions about it? Yeah, but like maybe it'll be okay.
But the next thing, leveraging, even sounds like Echo of Omens from Ghost Galaxy, which owns Keyforge now, is exploring this model, but it will have less heat organically because we've seen it before.
True.
Like the number of people buying, and Keyforge, I think, sold 1 or 2 million decks of their first set. It was crazy. So many people. It's like, I'd pay $15 to try it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're buying. But then you buy 200 decks of Keyforge for the first time. And it's like, oh.
What now?
I don't know if I want to buy more decks anymore.
Yeah. Or like, I don't even know what to do with these that I've got.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay. So if I can just put a bit of a logical framework on this.
I also have your summarized points.
Okay, we'll get to the summarized points. Here's the first. So the journey of cigarette pack collectible cards to Magic to the frenzy of I want everything and I want to have a full collection, and the amount of players that actually pursued Magic and collectible games in that way. Basically, you have that audience that the LCG I think is better for, assuming that they're kind of purists on that spectrum and they don't also play limited, don't also want to collect and slab stuff, etc. So there's this pocket of players that the LCG I think is really good for. And then there's the pocket of players who want to engage in new mechanics, a card game, they want to build decks, they want to do this whole thing, but they are turned off by the TCG model as a gimmick, as a gambling gimmick, or as an ethical problem, or as a sustainability issue, et cetera, et cetera. So there are good reasons to say, like, I don't opt into the TCG model because the earth and morality. So what are my options? And it's like, well, the LCGs should naturally just get those players. They don't have to even really target them. It's the only option for them.
Yeah, well,
basically.
Kinda.
Unless they just play other things.
Or do other things.
Yeah.
But one of the things you could play, even without going outside the category of tabletop games, I think it's where board games fit in.
Right.
Where it's like, it's not collectible, it's fixed, it's in a box.
But we know card games ain't board games.
I agree. But in terms of, I've seen many people go down from the 2010s, I played LCGs, didn't want to get into collectibles.
Yeah.
Now they're board gamers.
Yeah. But you could get them with an LCG probably easier than anybody else.
100%. And I think one of the fundamental things we talked about last week is just proof in the pudding of the LCG model, the number of people who are looking for that, I think, is much smaller, currently at least, than people assume. Like, there's an easy assumption of lower price, more accessibility, more players. That has not panned out to be true.
Well, and I think that's really where I want to start, which is that probably is true, but it's within the pocket of these full collection constructed players that is a small percentage of the overall TCG audience. That maybe more of these people would move to an LCG, but that's still, I would argue that might be 5% of the entire, who's buying your product, the TCG products. 5% are trying to get a full collection and play this game and deck build and compete and these kinds of things. I don't know. We don't know the numbers on that. I will never know the numbers on that. So with that in mind, I think what I want to talk about is how then should an LCG be formulated to be most attractive and to best serve these groups? What's the rundown, though, from Steven of the past?
These are your, you said a lot of things are crystallizing from these conversations. Okay, we'll try to summarize. Number one, TCG style card games are at their best with consistently new and diverse challenges for your deck.
Okay, now pause. Is that true?
So I think expandable build your own deck games, to a point, are absolutely better. And one of the things they do very well is if you have 10 to 15 people that you're routinely playing against, and every week you're playing 3 to 5 of them, and you don't know what decks they're going to be bringing, and they maybe change their decks, and they change their approaches, and you have a meta and all that kind of stuff going on. That is something that, like, as an example, a board game doesn't offer, as far as I've seen.
That's right.
Which is, you go to play a board game, it is what it is. There's no pre-deck building, there's no customization. It's a fixed set of components. And so, yeah, you could play it 15, 20 times, but I do think one of the big differences between the average board gamer and the average LCG player is that board gamers are seemingly deriving more joy from breadth than depth. So sometimes, right. I have a lot of friends in this category, but they'll get really into, like, Spirit Island. They'll play a bunch of Spirit Island. And Spirit Island's the kind of game you can play a lot of. Side down. But a lot of board games, you'll see the pictures of the shelves, right? It's like, here's my 100 games. And so when it's time for a weekly or monthly hangout session, I'll bring 2 or 3 that I may want to play, put a different, game on, play it. You play it that night, off to the races. Next time you do the next thing. As compared to an LCG, which mimics a TCG in that this is depth. Like, you want to play the same game against the same people, constantly solving a different puzzle based on other humans.
And the other humans are making the puzzle that you're solving. I think that's key, because a board full, or a box full of components is eventually, over enough playthroughs, going to start looking the same. You're into this with Catan, obviously, the simple horse that can be beat indefinitely. But, like, even Splendor, these kinds of games, like, I probably have my strategy. I was trying to kind of perfect it over time, and then I execute it every single time I play that game. And then sometimes there are games where it's like, if I'm playing this faction, I eventually learn I should do this. If I play this faction, this is what they do. But it's just, you have a limited number of components, and they're only going to play in a certain kind of way based on the rules of that board game. But when you have an expanding card pool, you're constantly getting new tools that players are putting together for new, crazy, challenging ways, trying to be the best at the thing. And that is when card games in general are at their best, is whenever you have a ton of that happening over and over and over again. Super, super. If no one's ever been a part of that environment, it's hard to understand how just incredibly enjoyable that is. We had it even for Thrones. It was so fun. So fun.
You have
Thanks, Sean.
Number 2.
Get out of here with your start deck.
Changing your deck and or improving your play to overcome those challenges is the primary loop of the format, and why most players love it. Not unlike a roguelike loop. Build, lose, improve, build, overcome.
Is that right, Jonathan?
Love it.
That's right. You go to the tournament. You've got your cards. You've got your deck. I brewed an idea this week. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to try this. You put it on the table. You start playing. You're like, oh, that card really screwed me up. Or like, oh man, this didn't work because I needed more recursion. And then you go back in and you're like, okay, I need to add different cards. And then what do you want to do immediately? You want to play it again.
Well, and this
again
is
and again and again.
Referencing the game outside the game we often talk about.
Yeah.
Which is what card games in general bring to the table in a big way. Which is, you play in the weekly Game of Thrones tournament. You lose to Ben Comstock's Maester deck again. And then what do you do for the whole next week?
You call for the Maesters to be banned.
Yes. And you send emails and stuff to FFG. But actually, you after the tournament, you spend 2 hours with your friends talking about how to beat it. Then you go home, You are on Deck Builders Online. You're talking about it on Discord channels. You're looking at all your cards. You're doing test draws. You're maybe playing games on a different day at lunch with a friend or after work or whatever it is.
And you have that moment where you see the card and you're like, oh my gosh, it's the perfect answer.
And then you come back next Thursday and you play again. And then you play. You're like, oh, I'm in the last round. I'm undefeated. I'm playing against Ben with his Maester deck again.
Here's the moment.
Here's my chance. And then you lose again. And then it repeats. But in weird ways, right? Like this losing is not like it hits different. And also it's like an iceberg. The game is just a piece of the puzzle that's going on here. And underneath that game that you played on Thursday night for 3 or 4 rounds is all this other stuff that's going on. And in that same iceberg, by the way, is collectability, which we'll come back to or not. There's a piece of the iceberg for an LCG missing.
Heaven forbid.
Which is another game other people like to play.
Yeah.
We'll come back.
But
Number 3.
Is too weird.
This loop can work okay with a 2-person group, but it really thrives with lots of participants bringing their ideas and builds to the front. Metagame is what that is.
I mean, and that's easy enough, right? That's what a metagame is. So like you and I could sit here and play Hub World against each other over and over again for the next 2 years, and we would have a good time.
Yep.
If we had 8 people doing that, everybody in the office is doing that every week, that would be way better.
It's a very different experience.
And so it's just, I think that I'm just going to state that, and that is true, even if you want to argue with it.
And it kind of, a good example of a publisher kind of messing with this in a cool way is the intent of the organized play for Warlord, which is not only does a meta itself requires you to optimize for not one individual thing. So I can't just say, okay, Steven's going to play water and sorcery, so like I'm going to start optimizing for that.
Out. Yeah.
It's like I want to be able to beat Steven, but I also still need to be able to beat Jonathan and Evan. And so that collaborative, the meta, it's the thing between all of us, right? That gets shaped is such a driving force for these customizable. Like anytime you're building your own deck and bringing it against multiple other people, there's this thing in between us that gets created, this energy that is hard to experience in any other way. Anyway,
that's right. You're right. I agree with you, and I agree with your commentary about my thoughts.
Yeah. In order to get lots of participants doing this consistently, and therefore to maximize the value of the product, community must be organized.
This is the question.
This is getting interesting. Yeah.
Dang, I really crushed this.
I read your summary, and I was so good, I had to send you a private message to say.
What time did I post that?
You didn't prepare me to answer.
How many glasses of wine had I had?
I don't know what time. It's lost to space and time. I copied it and pasted it to a document.
Community must be organized to get maximum value out of a card game product.
So, if you're fortunate enough to have a scenario where I think you whether or not it's intentionally or organically or reactively organized, having a group of 4 to 20 people routinely gathering to play a game like this, I would make the case it's very rare for that to happen and not be organized in some way. You have like the Floating Skull David up in Seattle, making sure, posting announcements, making sure they have the space at the brewery, doing the thing. Or you have Adam with Fab at Edmund Unplugged, Adam and Ian putting together the events, making sure, and they're there. If it's odd, they play the odd round, et cetera, et cetera. So there's usually either players or a store, or you have a publisher hosting events, right? Like at PAX Unplugged, Gudnak was hosting draft events with their new booster boxes at a major event. So people are coming together.
And you do have local stores that are just posting their calendars and stuff. Yeah, all of that. So we do need some level of community organization for these things to be successful. I think it does have to go beyond your board game group or the idea of the board game group.
I do think a group of 3 to 5 people could sustain their gameplay and community loop without a store, and in their little like a group of 4 board game people could do it.
You think 4 people is enough to have the metagame necessary to keep the product of high enough value to keep buying it?
I think 4 is kind of the floor of like a sweet spot.
4 is the floor. Hey, that's a heuristic.
There it is.
Send that one to Brendan.
Deep cut.
Wherever Brendan is, I hope he's okay.
I think he is.
Is he?
He was at the Fab Pro Tour recently.
Oh, okay.
I saw him get a picture.
Not necessarily meaning anything.
Anyways,
4 is the floor.
Actually, he does. Brendan, if you're out there, you're not going to be listening to this. But if you are,
he's doing great.
I think he is actually doing pretty good.
Did he did he kind of like wake up? You're
gonna have to talk to Brendan about that one. Anyways, I think there's like practical reasons for 4 in most of these games. When you get together, everyone can be playing one-on-one. There's 2 pairs.
Right, 2 pairs.
I also think 3 is an odd number because it's just like when you're playing melee Game of Thrones, right? Which is up to
So I
4
think
players.
somebody just said that. Yeah, Zach M. We had our own Agate LCG lunchtime meta with just 4 of us that went on for years.
Yeah.
So can confirm.
So when you're playing melee though, if it's 3 people, someone gets ahead and it can be 2-on-1, which is fine. But if there's 4 people at the table, it's a lot more interesting.
It is more interesting, yeah.
Because it's just mathematically more can go on. For me, I think the sweet spot is like 6 to 8 for most of these games. Like my ideal scenario would be 7 other people who are really into whatever we're into. 8 is great because you can draft in most cases in like a productive way. I love drafting. And so 8 is like feels not small, but also still pretty intimate in like what's going on. And one of the things
it feels more like a team.
I think it was the week you were gone, Jonathan and I were talking about organized play. And we always have the competitive casual language that we feel like is failing us. I don't know if this is right, but the way I described it on that was the first time that it started to, I felt like I had language that made sense, which was effectively we're all just looking for people at the same intensity level as us. Because if it's head to head, it's inherently competitive. Like there is no casual.
Right.
But if we're both at the same intensity level of sorcery, no matter where that is the most fun.
Yeah, you're right.
And so
intensity is a good word there.
So, and that includes like the prep practice, how much, like if you go and you study all week to try to figure out how to beat Ben's Maester deck, and I'm just showing up on Thursdays, slinging a beer back and like whatever, we can have fun together potentially.
Yeah,
but
because you're drunk.
It's like the gap in the intensity will eventually be a problem.
Yeah, that's right.
It makes it fun for neither party.
Yeah, because like the one intense person feels like they're wasting their time because they're not getting the rep that they actually want. Because they're trying to prove a model and prove a point, not hang out and drink beer.
At scale, intensity becomes harder to align. So once you get to like 16, and we experienced this with Destiny for a long time, we'd have 15 to 30 people every week. And it's like, that's big enough that there are definitely people here not at my intensity level.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that. But if that's every game I'm playing all night, 3 weeks into that, it's like...
And that's what Swiss is supposed to filter for.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we don't have enough time to have more than 2 to 3 rounds. So it's
on a Tuesday night.
Round robin.
And that's a lot of times where LCGs find themselves.
Yeah.
Is 3 rounds on a Tuesday night and not a day-long tournament with a top cut on a Saturday.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
I think that's fair. So 4 is the floor. The 6 to 8 person groups maybe is your ideal. And then for me, I would add, I do like the ability once or twice a year at this point in my life to go prove it. And particularly to go prove it with the backing of my local crew. That we all go
enemies
somewhere.
Into friends, yeah.
The 6 to 8 person groups from around the country go and they have a 200 person event.
Yeah. Like if I was really into a game and I had the 7 people I routinely play with and we draft and we hang out and we play. And then a couple times a year we go to a big event like that and we prep for it together and then we're in it and we do it and we see how we're doing. Like that would be very fun for me as an individual. Point number 5. The LGS has a profit incentive to do this for TCGs, since a large number of involved players typically means more high profit sales of boosters so they can continue to participate. Boosters always have value, so there's no limit on engagement equals profit.
That's right. This is a big deal. This is the turning point in the proof. I didn't realize I was doing a philosophical proof on this. Not really doing that for all the people who are actually like...
Who would...
Like, your 2 is
Babe Ruth from the 1800s, Stephen making it.
Anyway, I think this is the deal with the devil that has been going on forever, which is the local store is going to do all of your community organizing because they have a direct profit benefit to doing so because you're going to keep buying packs.
Yeah, and this is where you get into some of the challenges that need to get acknowledged in a big way.
That's where I'm at.
Because
that's why it's important.
Beyond the natural incentive, it's also a disincentive if you're choosing which of these 2 things to point someone towards. Someone walks in, maybe they describe...
I love Game of Thrones. It's like, well, have you considered Magic
like,
together?
I love Game of Thrones. I love multiplayer and head-to-head. They go all through all the benefits of Game of Thrones. And then it's like, oh yeah, like there's characters in Magic. Game of Thrones, you see, looks just like Daenerys.
Here's a couple
right?
Booster boxes.
Yeah. Anyways, okay.
Okay, so that's a big point.
Because, and the thing here is like a retailer is an entity designed to sell things. So yes, they want to sell the things both that people want, but also things that actually make them money. And if part of selling it means I have to invest energy in organizing community or reward a player or pay someone to do that, the math has to math at some point.
And to be fair, sometimes it is. I'm cutting my own legs out of the argument here, but sometimes this is a false choice for a game store because, like, it's not often really the case that you're saying, well, I've got all of these TCGs that everybody wants to buy from me, and my store is full every single day, and so I'm not going to tell them to not come here so these LCG players can come here. I think most of the time it's like, well, Tuesday through Thursday, I'm paying for lighting and heating and all of this kind of stuff, and I've got 3 people in here. So if I could get 20 Thrones players, that's just as good as nobody.
Well, I think it's to me, it's not
Probably
even
a little better.
a choice as much as a player or a creator of an LCG style game. You need to acknowledge and understand this, because if you're going to count on a local store to build a community for you, as an example, framing yourself as the perfect Tuesday night league night game, as compared to trying to make an LCG fab, basically, like the all day long Saturday, 100 people playing in a tournament, top cut, big prizes, is difficult. Like if you're trying to play in that space as an LCG competing against a TCG, that's fundamentally, there's something off there. And I think that's the thing.
There's a reason it's not happening.
Yeah. So if you're doing an LCG trying to just say we are a cost-effective TCG, that is the problem to me. Or if you're a player assuming that is true, where it's like, oh, I don't know why you wouldn't support this in this way, which is different.
Makes me unhappy.
Number 6, without the same profit incentive for LCDs, the store has no incentive to cultivate a large number of involved LCG players.
That's not exactly true.
That's a little aggressive.
Yeah.
But
you know, you got to put your hooks in the water.
But example of this, Ian went to a big Star Wars Unlimited tournament last weekend, and they have this big event space in Oklahoma City, something arena. I forget what it was even called. But
I'm glad you listened.
He was in. I listened to the important details. He was in a 50 to 60 person Star Wars Unlimited event that everyone there paid $40 just to be in.
Wow.
So
why would would you ever pay $40 to be in a Thrones tournament?
Probably, but I'm not.
Why does it feel so different?
So
it's the competition you're paying for. It has nothing to do with the output.
Yeah, but also the kind of people that can play Star Wars Unlimited probably have $40.
Yeah.
Versus someone that has to play Game of Thrones in 2012. That's me. I pointed at myself for those listening.
You could hear it on the mic. Actually,
it's like I couldn't have afforded any of that. So LCGs for us at that time arrived at a great time. As
the only way to access the format. I'm going to add that.
Yeah. But while that was going on, apparently there was a 50, 60 person Magic tournament. There was a 30, 40 person Pokemon thing going on. So they, on a Saturday, they had a 200 person space full of TCG events all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So in that environment, if you are saying store that is hosting these events, we would like you to host our insert LCG game here event on a Saturday all day long with the tournament. It's apples and oranges of like, even genuinely, like there were moments that I had where it's like a lot of our events for LCGs for years were at the maybe break even point. And we would do the Saturday like that. We didn't do TCGs for the first 4 years of our local space because until Destiny came out. The math's tough on that and what people are going to pay to get into that and what you even have to offer as prizes.
Well, that's the weird thing. I can't even imagine anybody paying $40 to be at that Saturday Thrones event.
Yeah.
I think it would have been completely offensive.
And what you'd have to do to make that reasonable.
What did Star Wars Unlimited do to make $40 entries worth it? Store kit?
Well, I think
tournament kit.
I think
print some foil cards and call it a day. That was so cheap for them to do that.
Yeah, and then you also earn like the winner gets a special promo card, and then you top so many get invites to their big event where there are massive things going on and prizes and like it's invite only and all that kind of stuff.
Now I would say though, in your example of the 200 people playing in a big event hall, like if the event hall is your business and you're not selling products, then nobody cares what you're doing in there. If anyone's willing to pay $40, then they're willing to pay $40. So that is where if the model did not have any retail component to it, then yeah, all the Netrunner players want to pay $40 to be here and compete for whatever it is that they're competing for, just as good as a Magic player at that point.
But the reality is that the TCG company, in this case, Fantasy Flight with Star Wars Unlimited, has a model where not only do you get to host the event, but you only get to host the event if you sell the products. And if you're selling the products, first of all, great for you, store. But second of all, for FFG, as a TCG, they have way more resources.
Right.
So they have the resources to have people on staff to put together the organized play program, to do the promos, to print the playmats, to host the big event that you get the invite for, and all that kind of stuff.
There's just more money at the top, and so you can spend it on organizing and playing,
and promoting and marketing and the whole 9 yards. And so even getting 50 people there to pay $40,
marketing,
and having the license for Star Wars and all the stuff that it goes along with that.
Okay.
Anyways, let's carry along with your proof.
Do I keep going?
Number 6, without the same
long-winded.
Oh,
what about 7?
Number 7, number 7. Board game groups are typically 3 to 5 people that are more interested in diversity of games playing instead of consistently looping via the same game.
Seeded the idea.
So while yes, you might get to play once or twice every few months with a board game group, the primary loop is not really getting spun up. Play, iterate.
I think that's so true. I agree with myself yet again.
I do think there are games, and I have definitely played some of these. I'm thinking about like Dune Imperium or Old King's Crown, where it's the kind of game you do want to play again, but I literally played it, was thinking about it, and can do nothing except for play it again.
Yeah.
Like I can't customize and tweak and build and look at cards and like browse databases. I can technically go look at the cards, but it's also sort of like I don't know which faction I'm going to end up playing. I don't know which cards I'm going to draw, like or what. So
it is different,
and the player count's going to matter, and like all that kind of stuff.
It is different.
And then number 8, this is the end of your proof.
Oh, thank God.
All participants in an LCG must also be willing to consistently buy multiple expansions a year to keep playing. I assume that means because playsets are so accessible that not having a playset is more weird in an LCG, and maybe the kind of thing where like if a set came out for Game of Thrones and you didn't buy the new thing, you just were like outclassed in the game.
I think there's that component to it. I think there's also kind of the raw fiscal component, which is like if you as a player base are only buying 30% of the LCG products, is already having trouble to get the resources it needs to continue production.
Oh, if you don't buy everything. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, and so, but that speaks more to the design of the product than it does to the players making a choice.
I do remember there were times with Netrunner or Game of Thrones, there were definitely people that were just like, I'll buy everything.
Yeah, and then there was the Mumbad cycle.
But there were definitely, you know, as in Thrones, I only played Targaryen, and there'd be packs, and it's like, there's nothing here for me. There's 2 Targ cards, but I'm not going to play them. And the idea that you could put in the work to get that Thrones community going, and I don't know, 10 to 20% of the people are just not going to buy the product at all. No way to engage with it. They're not even going to draft it or do sealed or do a pre-release or whatever. That is salt in the wound, basically.
Yeah.
All right, that's your proof.
Okay, that is my proof. I agree with every part of it. Now here's
good job.
Okay, so assuming these conditions are true, and assuming that that the other 2 pieces of this are true, that we lose a lot of potential audience by going from TCG to LCG, but we do pick up certain groups, and you added one to my groups that we pick up. One, we pick up people who economically could only play an LCG, period.
There is no choice.
Now there is always an argument to be made, and someone will say, well, you know, actually, if you go to TCG Player and you put in the top 4 deck that actually only costs you $80, then you can buy the $80 deck, and it's equivalent to buying the core set that you need to start playing the LCG or whatever it is. There are times when that's true, and there is some truth to that. But there's also the reality of like, hey, you want to get into this game? Yeah, cool. I'd love to play cards with you. It's like, okay, well.
Okay.
So
he winds up.
So you're going to want to go to this website called tcgplayer.com.
Yeah.
And you're going to put in all your information, create an account. You're going to have to decide, having never really experienced the game before, the kind of deck you want to play and all the different pieces of that deck and the variations of that deck. And I can point you to this deck list. Do you want to be aggressive? Do you want to be defensive? Oh, you want to be aggressive? Okay. We'll get you this deck. We'll go through the card optimizer. We'll get you all these singles. And 2 weeks from now, maybe 3 weeks from now, sometimes a month from now, you have all the cards that you need to then compile into a deck. And then you can come bring it in and you can start playing with us in this. So yes, it can be cheaper for longtime veterans of these models and swimming in these spaces. But if we're talking about like, I'm wanting to get my board game friend into Hub World, I think if I start talking about you need to go do these things and buy these singles and decide, it becomes overwhelming.
It's a lot. And
so there is a big advantage for somebody who's like, I only have like $100 budget maybe every few months and for my hobbies. And like, I just want something easy. And it's like, well, this is an easy way to participate in a card game. You just click the button, you get the cards, and now you can play the game with us.
Which, some counterpoints. Part 1 is essentially draft and sealed,
Right.
which is a pretty low barrier entryway.
I know.
Like a draft of 3 packs
know.
is like $12.
Yeah, drafting is hard as like an intro format, but
I got it. The next thing, the kind of counterpoint, is looking at the Alpha Class Champion decks, which is a collectible game can indeed solve this problem.
Right.
Which is $50. Here's a fully constructed
and Pokemon
deck
does
that you
this
can
all
play.
the time.
Pokemon does this constantly.
Yu-Gi-Oh does it all the time. I think
you literally come in, pay $20, get a Pokemon deck you can take to a tournament.
Yeah.
And
so the economic one is like, what do the kids say? Sus still?
it is sus, yeah.
Jonathan, can I get a check on that?
Yeah.
Can you Google that one?
No cap.
Okay. Are we still we're still saying sus, or are we old now for saying sus?
I don't say sus.
Is that good or bad? Like, does that mean you're old or young?
Yeah, old. I'm not young.
So sus is younger than your vocabulary.
Yeah, for sure.
But it might still be old.
Yeah, for
now,
sure.
because language moves quickly on the
internet. Like a 20-year-old might think that that's like what the old people do.
So I do think the economic argument is the most sus argument. Please clip that, Jonathan. The second one is people who want to access full collection constructed from a TCG, but that is overwhelmingly expensive and hard to do. And I think this is the target audience for me. I want to play full collection. I think this is a lot of LCG players who are in this category. I want everything. I want to be able to build any deck I want, and I want to come in and I want to deck build, and I want to make the deck that I want to make, and I want to play it against other people.
I also assume these people that are ideal in that audience don't actually want to play the game outside the game that is collecting.
That's right.
They don't enjoy opening packs. They don't enjoy hunting for things. They want to just have the stuff. They don't have time to mess around with it. They just want to go straight to the point. Give me my cards. Let me play my game.
There's a lot of people in this group for kind of various reasons.
Yeah, and you also have people that think it's ethically wrong or
that's the second category
wrong.
To me. And they may not even want to be playing full collection constructed. That might not be their ideal way. Maybe they love draft formats, but they just don't like the idea of packs and waste and all this kind of stuff, or the idea that I have to gamble on this and those kind of things. So I think those are the two big categories that we've identified, and we have our proof at work. Here's the first point I want to make. So how do we then build an LCG design that is going to play into the full collection constructed strengths? Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, we're about to run wild.
Here's the number one thing you can't do, Zach. You cannot do what every LCG did, except for Netrunner, basically, which is if the whole point of having a full collection is that I have infinite possibility, as infinite as a game can provide me, the ability to build a deck in the way that I want to build it. If you throw 7 faction silos at me, the deck building options are cut by 7. So like, it's the worst possible scenario for a full collection constructed game to silo so heavily into
context,
cards I can't play.
Game of Thrones ended up having 8 factions, I think.
I think it was 8.
So faction cards, especially the characters, which are the bulk of what you play, could be played out of faction at a steep penalty. So it didn't really happen. So a new pack of Thrones would come out, 20 unique cards, 3 copies each playset. 8 factions, they each get 2 cards. And then they'd have some neutrals. So when I was referencing packs I didn't want to buy as a Targaryen player earlier, you'd look at the 2 Targaryen cards. These are cards that don't fit in any of my current decks. That whole pack is dead to me. Also, interestingly, I'm paying for a whole pack for 6 cards.
It's crazy, actually. And then you can expand the pack math to box math or whatever it is. You cannot have a heavily siloed, or I would argue almost siloed at all game. And silo versus archetype, you throw me in the industry discussion pool. But
compared to Netrunner, where you could genuinely mix basically all cards.
All cards could be mixed together.
Agendas, have to match faction, got it. But like, because of the way influence worked in that game, it was much more flexible in how you could put these cards together.
That's right. So if you want to build the deck builder's dream game, which is what the LCG ultimately is offering the best possible experience for that player, you can't then cut your own legs out by faction locking everything. And Thrones did that, and L5R did that, and Conquest did that, and Star Wars LCG did that? No. I don't know. And does anyone play that game?
Star Wars LCG. Shots fired. You could
it
put
had its other things.
Like you could put objectives in whatever. Like you could mix Imperial and Sith as an example. Like there was no end to that.
Okay.
But like literally in Thrones, if you're House Targaryen, which is a choice you make before you start building the deck, you basically are just cut out 80% of the card pool. I remember so deep into Thrones doing the math, and it was like, oh, I actually, if you zoom in on just Targaryen, after 15 years of this game existing, and all of the cards being legal, I only have 120 unique cards to play with. And of those 120, 40 of them I don't even think are playable.
Right.
So I have
because
80
design is design.
cards
Yeah.
to choose from. 80 unique cards.
In the one format that should be the best possible deck brewing format in the industry.
Yeah.
You have suddenly
That's
made
crazy.
it the worst.
Yeah. That's crazy.
When you see it on the face like that, you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what is happening?
Now, Game of Thrones was originally collectible, and that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because you're a Stark player, you collect all the Stark cards, you trade your whatever you open that's not Stark for Stark, off to the races.
Done.
Yeah, easier to get.
So it makes sense.
Going.
Yeah. So that's the first thing that I want to. If I'm designing an LCG today, how an LCG can succeed, the first thing you really have to focus on is how can I make the deck brewing environment as open and as captivating and thrilling as possible. Good example of this is Hub World, in fact, because every potential card released in Hub World is a card that I can play, which I think is extremely, with their influence kind of system that they've got, where I can swap out these agents for those agents. I suddenly access the entire other side of the card pool. I can move through that card pool. I can take the deck, the agent that I like to play, or the runner. What do they call the runners? The seekers. I can take the seeker that I want to play. I can swap agents in different ways and access basically the entire card pool to mix with that seeker and vice versa. So that to me is a really good example of that. I think Gudnak has a problem here ultimately in this theorized world, but they went to add collectability to it to kind of try to solve it. But you have factions siloed pretty heavily in that game, and you have neutral cards, of course, that you can add in. But that I think is a challenge for them, where it's like, A, the deck brewing is restricted by it, but B, are all of your products desired by all of your players? And I think that is a necessity. That's the second thing I want to bring up for the LCG or for the non-collectible format, is that if you're going to be spending all of the same design time and art time and packaging time and production time and manufacturing and marketing, if you're going to be doing all the same work that the TCG people are doing, you need to make sure that all of your LCG player base can legitimately be interested and invigorated by the new product that you release.
Yeah, you need everyone playing to buy everything.
Yes, which is, again, an insane thing that happened where you had the Targaryen big box expansion, and it's like, it's serving nobody but a very specific slice of your player base.
Yeah, it's like,
it makes no sense.
Your big release, your big release is only a fraction of your players actually want it, which we experienced that.
Your conquest, you got your big faction release. It's just, okay, so we need to stop. You can't do that anymore. You just can't do it. Just don't do that.
Yeah,
don't do it.
Yeah. Well, another, I don't know. Do you have a list, or do you want me to? I have something specific that I'm thinking that it was inspired by this focus, right? Where if you actually sift down to who would want to play a non-collectible expandable card game and why. And to be fair to Gudnak, before I get to my thing I want to add, it also really, I think there's a line somewhere where a game is either leaning towards a board game or a card game.
That's what chat's all into right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
With
you
Gudnak,
weren't looking at chat?
No.
You've got it up right there. You're about to steal chat's ideas.
You're
like an AI model over there.
There it is.
Large language.
Call me Claude. But effectively, I think it's an expectation thing. And right now, Gudnak, to me, fits way more in the board game category, or in terms of like, this is a card game you can do that loop on, but it's not like there's like weekly organized play and tournaments, and they're not, at least presently, attempting to, the booster box might change it, I don't know. But like, it is not framed to be, as compared to Hub World, which feels like it's supposed to be the kind of game that is 2010's FFG LCG style. Like,
but there are people meeting weekly or commonly and playing Gudnak in big groups.
Yeah.
Like they're all over the Discord.
Which I'm not saying that won't happen.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the simple way of saying
who you're designing the product
for. Who is this for?
Yeah.
And if the more clear you are on that, I think the stronger chance you have of being successful and creating something great. But the thing I want to add that is crazy, and it's just so obvious and painfully obvious to me, and we've danced around this forever since LCGs have been around, which is, yes, LCG trademarked by FFG. You can't use this term. And it always drove me crazy because it's the perfect format to have an actual living game. We talk about it a lot, but they had a tool in Game of Thrones that was called the restricted list. And so what that meant is card A and card B are on the restricted list. You can only have one playset of cards from the restricted list in your deck. And so suddenly, card A, card B are both on the list. I have to choose as a Targaryen player. Do I want to play this Danny or do I want to play this event?
Mm-hmm.
I can only play one or the other. And they would update this occasionally, maybe every 6 months, depending. A lot of times it was meta responses, or this is getting kind of oppressive, so we'll add this to the restricted list. At one point, they added all the refugees just to see what would happen. And like, the crazy thing to me is, especially with an LCG that had a monthly release, it's insane that you're not updating that every month in the pack or on your website. It's like the the weather report for Earthborn Rangers, but for a competitive game, because everyone has access to everything. So saying this card that, like, in a collectible game, that is not that feasible. Because
it's devastating.
If you paid $500 for your playset of Command and Conquers, and then Fab comes out and says you can't play Command and Conquer anymore, that hits different.
Way different
than if it was a set of 3 cards that came in the $30 thing you were buying.
Right.
And if the expectation from the start of the game coming out is this is going to be a thing we do.
Mm-hmm.
All cards are not always going to be legal. We're going to, like, Hub World's doing seemingly 4 products are legal at a time of the rotation. But another way of doing that would just be, we're going to choose 4 of our products at a time that are legal.
Mm-hmm.
And you could, every month or every quarter, you could say, okay, expansion 1, 5, 8, and 9 are the things that are suddenly legal. Totally different game compared to expansion 2, 3, 7, 6.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. But you don't even have to go that high. You can go lower on the card level, which is, I'm just in Hub World's world, the picture Netrunner, right? And it's like, oh, this runner got discovered by Wayland, and they're no longer
L5R thing.
They're gone, and maybe they're gone permanently. Maybe we thought they were gone, but then they come back. You just have this opportunity to dramatically shift, because it kind of also answers a problem with the LCGs, which is, especially in the monthly model, the slowness of how things change.
The monthly model is just a non-starter.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you need to do bigger releases.
Yeah.
But because things like a TCG putting out 3 sets a year with 200 cards in it has 3 times a year where the game fundamentally shifts in like a pretty big way.
Mm-hmm.
And every time that happens, you get pre-releases, you get sealed, you get draft, you get a whole new way to experience the game. LCGs with a monthly pack, or even once, like Hub World's roughly once every 6 months.
Just assume once every 6 months. I think that's the starting point.
Having the ability every month for this sand to shift pretty dramatically and not really create friction in the same way a TCG would create friction.
Unique advantage.
Is a unique, and like, again, from if deck builders.
That's what I'm saying.
Are
coming
really
back
thing.
to the focus.
100%.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Because if you actually put that through the model and you're saying, how do we make the fact that everybody has a full collection as exciting as it can be, given that people who want to play full collection typically want to be building decks and brewing decks, and that's the only way they engage with this game outside of playing it, we should make that so compelling all the time. So introduce new restrictions, introduce new bans, introduce this thing on, this thing off. They have to go build the decks again, which is what we're here to do anyway.
Yeah.
So it just makes so much sense. So no silos, as few silos as possible in deck building. Change up the scenarios and then the conditions around deck building so that people can engage with it as much as possible. And then make sure that all of your products are desirable to every potential player, every potential buyer.
I also think we kind of hit on it, but I think less bigger releases is more appealing than more smaller releases.
Yes.
So like Hub World doing
bigger releases.
Hub World doing a bigger box every 6 months compared to a monthly pack, I think is way better.
Yeah.
And you can solve maybe the lack of consistent changes with something like this evolving list of playable, not playable, playable together, not just deck building restrictions, or like Alpha Clutch does their event cards. It's like, this is in play all weekend at their events. You could do the same thing where it's like, this month, this card is in play, or this static effect is applying to all games.
Yeah.
And these 3 cards aren't playable anymore.
Yeah.
For this month. Anyways, so another piece of that though is just the singular bigger releases that aren't siloed out creates a natural big moment of excitement where like the game really changes in a big way when a big thing hits. I think another piece of that though is talking about the product itself, which is make sure everyone wants to buy it. But when you're buying it, and Hub World did a lot of work on this, like they solved a lot of problems. Each of their releases is a draft cube for 4 people.
You're going right there.
Yeah, which I think is like low-key genius. Like that is a massive innovation. Picturing Netrunner, if Netrunner had released every 6 months instead, big drop, big release in a draft cube, now you're eliminating one of the big disadvantages of LCGs, which is the lack of draft. It's crazy. But that also makes it just like very viable off the shelf for anybody. It's like, oh, here's a draft cube for a game. Do you want to play? You can just buy this one thing. And bigger releases also means you buy the one thing. And this could be the first thing you buy, and it's enough to buy this one thing. You get a draft cube. You can build constructed decks out of it. You have enough. Current players have enough new cards coming in that things actually shift no matter what you're interested in playing, etc.
Yeah. So I think you and I, as we often do, are agreeing on a lot of these things. I think there's the first focus for an LCG to be successful, non-collectible card game, ECG, whatever. The fact that they trademarked that LCG term is actually really problematic, because it just means that an already small group of card game players don't have universal terminology to use, which annoys me. But that's beside the point.
It's kind of interesting that can like hold up.
Yeah,
because everyone's using TCG now.
Yeah, and it's like,
I don't know legally what if like it expired, or like it's so universal now that you just can't own it.
But it's kind of just like, even like how to title a podcast. It's like, well, you're trying to do this SEO stuff. So people who are looking for expandable card game content, what do they type in?
Yeah.
Some of them use XCG, some use ECG, some use LCG. And it's like, that's annoying. Whereas the TCG is so universal that all of those players can actually find their way to the content they want. Anyway, it annoys me greatly. I think you need to make sure that your LCG product hits the main value prop, which is I have a full collection, and I need to, as a publisher, I need to utilize that to its maximum benefit. And like we talked about, the silos and the refreshing the format through banned and restricted lists, these kinds of things are really important. Then your second thing is, can I claw back some of the things that have dropped off if I'm just focusing on full constructed people? And so I think Gudnak has a theory that is, maybe we can claw back limited players and collectible audiences, or it could also just be get more money out of our existing audience through collectability. Again, it's not an ethical problem for me to do that, but like, people just want to collect the shiny cards. We need something else to sell them if they want to spend the money. So they go and they do booster boxes for all art, alt art, etc. If Gudnak goes on Kickstarter whenever they launch and say, we're a brand new TCG, here's our booster box, and also, if you want to, you can just buy this core set and get all the cards in a flat treatment, it hits way different. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I that is kind of profound.
Isn't it funny?
But it speaks to a thing I'll get into in a second too, which is just positioning of a product or an offering and how you're describing it. Because if you describe Gudnak as a TCG with a way to get the cards in a non-collectible format, that is crazy. Actually,
isn't it crazy what it does?
What that unlocks.
It's $1 million Kickstarter plus.
Tim, Ian, if you're out there,
restart.
Yeah,
relaunch it, new brand.
But I mean, it's not that it's easy. Gudnak TCG.
Yeah,
and you just do your next thing, and then it's like, but we also have a way for you to get all the stuff without going through that song and dance.
Yeah. And then what do you have? A yearly box that's constantly being updated that you can buy every time a new set comes out, and it's just all the new cards. And there are some issues there. But anyway, my point is, Gudnak is, so we saw the LCGs come and go, and then we've seen new entries into the model. And there's some of these games that have 500 players, fans. It's a low production cost. Publisher can continue to make the cards. 1 to 2 people typically are going to be running those companies, designing the cards, etc. And they keep doing that as long as they want. They're not going to make a ton of money doing it, but it's their passion. They love it. So it's not to say that it can't work, whatever your definition of work is. But I think for us, we're talking about like a decent amount of commercial success out of a game in the LCG format. What would it look like? So Gudnak's trying to get there with the booster boxes of alt art treatments of their fixed card pool. And then Hub World, I think, is clawing back again the limited players, which everyone's trying to get the limited players back. I think everyone's realized that that's a problem. And then they're also, I think, going after the board game audience. And it makes sense because Earthborn Rangers, it's more of a board game focused player mindset. And so I think the idea that I can take my board game group of 4 people and we get a Hub World release in and we can all draft it at the table and then play some 1v1 games, I think that's much more appealing to a board game group than I bought a booster box of Gudnak and we can all crack packs and play limited because they're like, I don't want these cards anymore. I just want to put them back in the box.
And it also gives you some lift in that your even your diehards in Hub World I can see a world where most of them buy at least 2 copies
Mm-hmm.
because one copy you use for deck building, the other one you have as a draftable cube.
Yeah.
And you kind of don't have to pull decks apart to put the cube back together or whatever.
And they're giving people the ability to spend more money.
Well, and that's one of the downsides of an LCG is that at best, it's X equals players, X equals units sold. But most of the time, it's actually some percentage because of the way the game is designed, the products are packaged, where it's like, I don't want that faction, I don't want the thing.
Yeah.
So you do the work to get X players in, and you only get Y people buying it. Whereas extra value through the release of, okay, it's a draft cube, means the number might actually be higher than the number of players
for the first time
first time in an LCG's history. Now, I know people that bought 2 packs of all the Netrunner thing because they did a bunch of deck building. To your point, like, there are games, I was buying 2 of all the Star Wars LCG packs for a long time because I would have tons of decks built and built at the same time, and I didn't want to have to keep swapping cards between the thing. And it was cheap enough that I could actually do that. Like, you can have 7 play sets of a game if you really want to, whereas that's harder to do in a collectible world.
All right, there's one more pillar to cover here. So I think we've got 3 pillars here. The first one is focus on your target value prop of deck brewing and deck construction being a big part of the thing that you can do that the TCG competitors can't do. And so you take that audience, you give them a low silo game, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to make deck building in your LCG very exciting and very often shifting and very diverse. So you might introduce banned and restricted. Make sure the product can support that. Then you get on what kind of players that are currently either fed up with TCGs or like playing TCGs but don't really want to be, or like, can you compel them to come over to your LCG because you're offering them what they're doing over there, which is, but we also have limited play. We also have the ability to, we can bring the board gamers in, we can bring the limited players in, we can bring the collectors in. You try to shave some of those people that you lose with the model. You try to bring them back with some kind of clever way. And I think we're seeing both Gudnak and Hub World are trying different approaches at this. I think we'll see additional approaches. I don't have a silver bullet for this.
I think we will see additional approaches.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's also like digital stuff. Anyway, so the third pillar that we still, I think everybody has trouble solving is again, if you go to the 8 points on the church door here, how do we get people together to play this often enough that while I'm able to brew decks and have these ideas and get these moments of inspiration, I can instantly try to go validate them and get that core gameplay loop going of build, play, lose, try, experience, build, lose, build, win, build, etc.
I think there's a lot of layers to this one. This is your third pillar out of 3?
This is the third pillar for me.
So one of the ways is to create a significant amount of demand. So you have a lot of players, this organically happens a lot easier.
That is right.
This is a huge advantage FFG had in the 2010s with all their games, because once Netrunner hit, that was the first truly big LCG. Like, it came out and it went crazy at Gen Con, crazy excitement. But then there was a string of games that just had a lot of interest. And so every time a new LCG came out, tons of areas would just have 6 to 10 people showing up to play at your local space. And like, here it is. Just
a volume.
Yeah. If you can achieve that, of course. Like, if you just get to the volume, great. But then the question is, well, how do you actually achieve that? And that's where I get to, for me, there's a product positioning reality, which is sort of what we were talking about earlier of how are you actually going to get players or retailers to organize these things?
Do you think you need to get retailers?
No, but I think you can.
You can.
And I think Netrunner and the LCGs largely were driven by players. Most Netrunner communities were probably run by a player who came in and said, hey, can we host a thing here on Tuesday nights because that's your empty night?
And then if you can get 8 packs of this product every month.
Yeah. And you have 15 people coming into play. They all say they want the pack. You buy 15, you sell 15, you're off to the races. And so I think, there's a grassroots
like $100
player effort, right? And but that's where the positioning is really important on if you're positioning as and also product, right? It's not like a store has to be all in on this one thing or like spend a lot of time on it. If you have players and you have things set up where players can actually effectively do A, B, and C or whatever that is, there's a way to frame it. But if you're trying to be the Saturday tournament with a top 8 and a big prize, I think you're in for an awakening.
This is to your point about volume. It just flashing through my head of like, the organized play problem wouldn't exist for a Pokemon living card game. We wouldn't be having this conversation because people would just be losing their minds together and play it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this does come down to like, are there enough people interested that you reach critical volumes that can self-reinforce?
Yeah. And if there's a critical enough volume, like there's enough people coming in asking about it, trying to order it, wanting to play it. And like at the end of the day, it's not like I don't see it as, I think local retailers have a part, but they're not like capital I influencers in most cases. Like they are, they can remove friction from the process. Like if you become interested in Hub World and you go down to your local store and they just have it sitting there and you're already interested, they can facilitate that. It's like, I have it here. And on Tuesday nights, we have this thing going on like that. Great. But at the same time, I think more times than not, especially with non-collectibles, like with Netrunner, there was an overwhelming demand created among players. It was so overwhelming that like stores didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Like it's what people want. And someone in the Discord was saying this, where it's like over and over again, it's been proven that a lot of people are willing to buy TCGs, and that's what they want. And that's why even the Gudnak positioning you were talking about earlier hit a bell in my mind, because it's a language. Like when you say this is a new TCG or this is a TCG, the people there's so many people that want that and search for that, and there's blogs about that, and there's content about that, in the same way that there's a whole engine around board game Kickstarters. Right?
Well, a lot of people don't even know that that LCGs exist at all. They've been playing card games for 30 years and they've never even heard of what an LCG might
don't
be.
even have a clue.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for, if there was a TCG out there that was a TCG, and it's just language.
Isn't that crazy?
A TCG,
it drives you nuts,
with an option to get everything in a non-collectible way. The people that want the non-collectible way would know about the TCG.
Yeah.
So you would get that 5% of the audience.
Yeah.
While also having an opportunity to get the other tens of millions of people who play card games and retailers who understand card games as a card game. Yeah. And by card game, I mean a TCG. Because that is like the common thing. Anyways.
Yeah.
So either have a TCG with a non-collectible option, or you need to position the non-collectible option as something else entirely. In the same way that like Spirit Island is not competing with Magic, like, and stores don't have any problem at all having Spirit Island on the shelf and selling Magic. And supporting.
Do they have Spirit Island events though?
If there are players that want to play it, I'm sure they do. I'm sure there are those groups around the world.
I think volume is the first thing, like you were talking about. I think that's it's funny because it's a very simple point, but there's a reason that we see IP stuff, which I dislike, being so effective, because this is the shortcut to volume of interest volume, basically. Because you're bringing in people who love Cyberpunk before they know what a card game is, or before they play the card game, or people who love Pokemon, or these kinds of things. So the IP is a thing, and I get it. And that's a shortcut to volume. So that is one way that the living card game format could look to say, like, is there something that would just drive so much organic interest in the product that the volume itself would solve the third pillar of our organized play, and so we wouldn't have to worry so much about how to kind of scrape it up. The other thing, though, there's a couple of other options here. One is some kind of community ambassador program. We've seen these come in and out of fashion for various reasons, and all of this, but I'm not sure that I've seen any publisher, and I certainly have a low percentage awareness of these kinds of programs, so there probably have been some really successful ones. I think Warlord in the old days was actually pretty good at this, because the Overlord kind of created a community ambassador.
Well, and specifically AEG, who owned it, if they in the 2000s are known for anything, it's their insane organized play approach that was
and player buy-in, like, in a big way. But if you could brainstorm, like, if I'm Hub World, I might be brainstorming, like, how can I give really bought in players, because they're already there, they're going to be there, and they're going to try to get these organized play things happening. David, great example. Our friend Floating Skull there in Seattle made Sorcery Con, great documentary, check it out. If you can empower them in ways that has not been done before, or that are at least very effective, and you just say in your organized play plans, we are not expecting retailers to run these programs. We need a dedicated group of 100 players across the country or in a region or whatever. And it's going to be you guys, and you're going to get special benefits, and there's going to be, and everyone's going to know who you are, and we're going to send you merch, and you're going to be the guy. Now, of course, there are challenges there, right? You can't control 100 outsourced human beings who might lose interest, might have toxic communities, might, sexually harass people. There's all sorts of reasons that trusting people with your brand in this kind of way is a problem. But it is, at least I think it's maybe one of the only mechanisms you have, given the market realities that we're talking about. Yeah. Especially if you don't have maximum volume, you need people on the ground, and there are always people on the ground willing to do this.
Well, and a lot of times they'll do it without any incentives or support or tools or any of it.
But if you give them those things, I think you could see a very big return on that.
Yeah. Well, and funnily enough, Warlord keeps coming to mind because their Overlord, Dragon Lord, Medusan Lord system. And in my mind, that is Warlord's dramatically unique positioning amongst TCGs, which is like, we understand we're going to come in as a small fish in the Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lorcana, Star Wars Unlimited, Flesh and Blood world. And even for a TCG, right? Simplifying it, they're not even trying to do the non-collectible thing. This assumption that organized play is going to be a big deal, we can essentially really involve the players who are going to be running these things as overlords, which is fun. That is the reward itself.
Yeah.
It's just getting to be that final boss at your local tournaments and be that person for your community. That is a great answer to, and other games could adopt that same style of thing.
Yeah.
Which is like, how do you actually, I don't even think it's like pay or fancy promo or any of that necessarily. Like there's an approach to incentivizing that or rewarding that is not just like stuff. Like it's cool to be the overlord.
Yeah.
As one example of that lane.
Yeah, so there's like a decentralized organized play approach that you could pursue. There's the get in the board game group approach that you could pursue. That's a way to get organized play for your game. You just target the board game group rather than the TCG group or the retail store.
Or
that is what Hubworld's doing, I think, to a good degree.
In a certain kind of way, Sorcery started this way, which is you're actually just targeting the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Which is the 3 to 4 person groups. You're not necessarily even anticipating local organized play, and they're now adopting that start of it, right? But they did it sort of like Magic, which is we have none of it to start. We're going to target groups of people that play at home in 2 to 6 person groups, kitchen table, et cetera, et cetera.
How did they target those people, though, do you think?
I think it's everything about the product design and the positioning and the way they're talking about it and the kind of people that it would appeal to. All one set a year, hand-painted art, the way uniques work and the deck building and that whole thing.
It just kind of got away from the modern TCG competitive language.
Yeah,
really. I mean, that's a big deal.
But that's another lane. Like you could be the card game for groups of 4 people who just play against each other at home, but you also need to acknowledge that. Again, it just comes back to point number 1, defining who is this for, because that then informs a ton of other decisions.
And I think the final piece on organized play for me is, I think you need to, as a publisher, I think you need to have 1 or 2 big flagpole events a year. There are, and I'm one of these players. I think I would buy all the Hub World releases. Since we're just using Hub World as an example, I'm just going to stick with it. I could buy all the Hub World releases. Think about some decks every now and again, and play once or twice a year at a big-ish event, and like that would be enough for me for the indefinite future.
It makes sense because it's leveraging the fact that for a year of Hub World releases, you pay $200.
Yeah,
which is the first purchase you make in a single set of a TCG. It's like spending more.
The rest is traveling money.
Yeah, and so like when you're only spending a couple $100 a year, playing it once a year is not crazy, especially if it's like a big week-long thing that you make and this whole 9 yards.
Oh, there's a fourth one. One of the biggest ones, which is you can solve the organized play problem with digital clients. Like, I'm going to be able to achieve the gameplay loop that I'm looking for, where I can quickly build decks and iterate, and then I can immediately test the theory. I mean, when I was playing Flesh and Blood, seriously, I could crank 5 to 6 games a night, and that was actually the loop was addictive and awesome.
Well, and that 5 to 6 games a night digitally, to me, digital. I'm firmly on the digital clients only are additive.
Mm-hmm.
Unless your game is not worth playing in person, which is totally subtractive, but you have a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Like you playing those 5 or 6 games, you wouldn't have played in person that night.
Mm-hmm.
And those 5 or 6 games across a month meant you went to the PQ.
I went to Pro Tour, yeah.
And
or
like
the Pro,
whatever
Pro
it was.
qualifier. What do they call it? Pro Quest.
Pro Quest,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Yes, that is another. I think for any small game like this, having digital ways to play is a boon.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need other people to play with for the loop to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have kindling to basically get the fire going.
Yeah.
But the hope is eventually there's enough people playing that people do physically have opportunities, whether it's regionally or once a year at a big event or whatever.
And with digital, I think I said this last time, I believe, but it is true to me that LCGs have the biggest advantage when it comes to digital clients, in that I think it's realistic that you could tie the purchase of the product to the digital collection.
Sure.
And
you
like
get everything when you buy the thing.
There is arguments to be made for the digital clients should just be free because it's free advertising, free marketing, and if they want to play in person, they buy the $200 worth of Hub World stuff. That is a fine. I mean, there's a lot of great points to either argument, etc. But I don't even know that you have to honor that argument if you're a Hub World. I think you can just strictly say, we have a code on each box that's unique. When you open it up, you can scan that and all of your collection will immediately be updated to your account and you'll instantly get all the things in your thing. I think that just solves a big problem of we don't even have to ask how much marketing value are we getting out of a free client versus if we forced it to be gated behind product purchases. Just put that system in place. You get your own digital client, you get people who can play with the cards, and you guarantee that you get product purchases. I think it's a more holistic approach ultimately on the whole.
Yeah.
But you need a lot of capital going in to do that, Zach. And a lot
Digital
of times
clients
the
are not
LCG
cheap.
people do not have the capital. And we get back to the same problem.
Yeah.
If they're undercapitalized because of the model, and if they're undercapitalized because they're trying to make a game on the cheap, then they don't have the digital clients or the big community ambassador program, et cetera.
A couple of things. I don't know where this fits into the framework, but
So add more money, I guess, is the strategy.
a couple of things to just add to this. One is starter product. So if you do the release like Hub World where you can buy any product and it could function as kind of the way you get into the game, that makes sense. But one thing we've seen LCGs have a problem with is eventually over time, if you don't have rotation, which is another piece of this, maintaining the SKU count basically, it eventually becomes more expensive to buy into an LCG than it does to buy a constructed deck for a TCG.
Mm-hmm.
And that when that math gets crossed, that gets hard to justify what's going on. So thinking through how many products are available, that's why I also think this fewer, bigger releases is helpful. If you imagine being a retailer who is supporting one of these things, like LCGs were a nightmare eventually. All these tiny little packs that make you, dollars every time you sell them. And if you don't have A, B, and C, your customers are going to go look online to get them and then realize they can get all this stuff online for, so the whole cycle of this loop. And once you're buying online, I'm going to go ahead and buy all the other stuff I don't have. And suddenly, you're just leaking out the bottom of your ship. So I think those are just relevant pieces of the pie to understand. And this all comes back to the product and how you're positioned and how you're talking about it, how you're selling it and what it looks like.
But I will say on the rotation front, I think when I was talking to Evan before I came in here, and this is the bottom of my sheet, by the way, and then I would really like to get some thoughts. If you guys in the chat, I'm glad there's 150 people listening to this live. That's amazing. If y'all in the chat can put one question in it or one statement that you think is really notable to this conversation, for the first time in live streaming history, we're actually going to make an effort to engage with this.
But I do have one more thing I want to add.
Okay, so I'll add one, you add one, and then chat
then we'll go to the
bombs it. Okay. So I was talking to Evan out there. Evan's, he's a young kid. He's 18, 19 years old. He's saying sus all the time. He's on TikTok dancing and stuff.
That checks out.
5-year anniversary coming up next week.
Of working here,
yeah.
He's
He's not 5. Yeah, he's a 5-year anniversary. That's a birthday. Birth anniversary.
Yeah, he's getting younger all the time.
He said actually one of the big deals for him, even as a budget conscious player, which you wouldn't know because he spends money on TCGs like he's flowing out of his pocket. But
I was gonna say, no thing he has ever done makes me think that is true.
Yeah, well, he thinks he is, and that's every great TCG player, right?
Yeah.
He said actually losing the resale value on a fixed card game model makes it feel like it's actually more expensive. Because you don't have essentially basically the lie that is like you can always sell out for as much as you bought in for. But that's where I do think that what you were hitting on earlier, which is that it's not necessarily just rotation, it's optional products in a card pool at any given time. If I'm 12 releases into Hub World, so 6 years later, and set 1 can still come into the rotation, then me who bought set 1 and 2 4 years ago can sell those products back into the marketplace, right? And so there's something there too, where like, even if I can get it, even if it's always available for $100, if I can sell it back for 80 on eBay, that adds back in some of that TCG magic that I lose. And so again, it's a way to kind of claw back some of these ideas so that we don't just completely abandon any given audience in the TCG. So that is one way you could do it, is to never have strictly all out of rotation, but actually this could come back at a later date in a more eternal way, right? These 4 sets are in.
Fascinating.
Now, do you keep it in print indefinitely? Yada yada. Then again, you've already designed it. You've already printing new print waves of these things is very cheap.
Well,
so is it that big of a problem?
This
really?
kind of segues into my point, which is another gem that we should bring up is Ashes.
Yes.
Who recently made some moves.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest ones I want to mention is leveraging what's it called? It's like Forge Fire or something like that. Anyways, there's a service that they have where you go under their deck builder.
Is this a CTP
it's a
joint?
Christian special, yeah.
Okay.
Go under you build a deck, and you literally can hit a button and print the deck.
Mm-hmm.
So they are an LCG style game that's been around for a decade, no rotation, and so there's a lot of products. You don't want to have to keep all those different products, and they were on like a smaller. It's basically each release was its own deck that you could play, which is like 30 to 50 cards. So keeping all that in print is actually pretty unsustainable. And so they essentially pivot to it releases, and then you're getting the full quality print, factory run, etc. But now you have this on-demand printing that lets you keep things legal, and that could be a potential answer too. It doesn't solve the what do I do with the first set that I bought that's no longer legal to play problem, but it does solve the you can make cards legal at any time problem.
Yeah.
But also you're a new player and there's 15 things out and you don't have to buy all 15.
Yeah.
But you could literally go build whatever deck you want, hit a single button that solves a starter problem, that solves all that kind of stuff. I could also see a world, it doesn't help on the incentivizing stores to host things locally button, but you could also have LCGs that are only released in that way.
Yeah, print and play only. That's what Null Signal's doing that.
Yeah,
where you can print and play the new Netrunner sets, the fan created Netrunner sets.
Here's put the cards in the deck you want, hit the button, have it shipped to you. Don't print anything. I think that comes with a whole set of other challenges and things going on. That's a whole different topic. But
It's a big barrier to get over for a lot of people. Like it's just a lot of inside baseball to get to the goal.
Yeah, I mean you have to be able to build a deck to buy a deck. So you could find someone else's deck to buy instead of it just being like, here's a thing you can buy and all that stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
And like on-demand printing is not overly time or cost effective.
Yeah.
So it's not on the shelf. You don't just pick it up. You're going to have to pay shipping. The cost of print per card is going to be higher than if you're doing a full factory run, et cetera, et cetera.
And they're a nonprofit. So like,
Null Signal for sure.
Some of those practices maybe wouldn't bear out if we're talking about some kind of commercial success with a product. Also, I can't believe we didn't talk about solo and PvE as a potential added benefit. Ashes, again, crushing. So they're clawing back a lot of the board game. Well, they're clawing the co-op LCG audience.
Yeah. But interestingly, you see Lorcana doing the exact same thing. Like they have co-op, they have head-to-head. And so I don't think that is necessarily connected at all to TCG or LCG.
But it is a way to get that part of the player base to engage with your game. So yeah, that's true. But we also do know, I think the people who are interested in solo and PvE are way more likely to want the fixed card pool as well. They're more likely to come from the board game space, I think, than the TCG space. Maybe that's a hot take.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm Sean Evans after all.
I mean, I do, that's funny.
I really do look like him today, especially.
I do think as an example, a solo or cooperative Disney experience probably wins over no matter what the format is.
Well, every Disney experience wins.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that goes back to the volume IP thing. Where it's like, I mean, it's not a unique factor of an LCG that you could have that existing. And even still, if you instead positioned as a TCG with the ability to get everything non-collectibly, and also we have solo and PvE, like, I don't think you're losing Because what you're doing by not being a TCG is taking 98% of people that buy card games off the table. Because they don't even know what it means for you to not do this.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's actually one of the most unexpected things that came from this episode. Like you saying that has hit in like a way. It's like,
hey,
I'm
look
a
at
little
us go.
uncomfortable
We can
with
still
it.
learn things.
I'm a little uncomfortable with how
we can
profound
still learn
that is.
things. Wow.
Anyways, let's get to the actual
I guess that's why we talk. Humans, man.
It's a weird
Humans.
friction, heat.
We're gonna engage with you guys so much.
Tommy,
You're just gonna be uncomfortable.
Tommy Rushing, should the LCG build the game with the store in mind, rather than wait for store owners to figure out how to organize? Should the LCG build a game that does it? So I think if I was making what do you say?
I'm gonna lean back.
If I was making a game, I think it's worth considering: are stores going to care? Do I care about stores? Do I want them to be an integral part of what's going on here?
Local stores, yeah.
And if you decide yes, then yeah, that should impact your product design, how often your product's coming out, your packaging. Like packaging doesn't matter if all you're doing is print on demand at deck stuff or release model. Like Ashes could put new cards out every day, literally. They could be like, oh, there's 4 new cards that you can put in your decks and print.
Nick was cooking last night,
which is just like, that's wild. And I mean, that's a way to do it, right?
And most of the small SCGs that we see, they're running a very small single-person publishing company, and they're selling directly on their website.
Yep.
That's the way that's getting done.
So I think making the choice or not whether they matter, it's a choice whether it matters to you or not. And if you're going to leverage it, that should take you certain places with your decision tree.
But my ultimate point, I think the point from this conversation is that there is no way you can design an LCG with a store in mind.
I mean, I think you can.
Okay, what do you do then? How do you get the store to care about selling your fixed card game product?
I think you make it look like a board game.
Okay.
Bigger release. Like Hub World's a really good example of this. I think they've solved a lot of the problems. I think you make it look like a board game.
Okay.
It can be an individual thing that someone purchases, not planning to ever. They're going to take it home and play it up with 2 people, draft, off to the races.
Don't call them expansions.
You literally can just make it look like a board game.
Yeah.
On top of that, you can frame it as this is what you do in your store on Tuesday night. Tuesday was historically our worst night for a long time. But like, if they want to be involved beyond a board game, like Spirit Island.
How do you do that though? How do you frame it as a
Island,
Tuesday night game?
Spirit Island doesn't ask, how do I get stores to host Spirit Island events?
Right.
They just say, here's a game, $70. Do you want to buy it from distribution? Moving on. So you frame it like that, first of all. Second of all, if a store does want to be more proactive, if you want to have a weekly tournament or league night, like technically, you can potentially provide them with things where they can do that.
You're saying store kits?
You could.
OP kits.
I'm not saying you have to go there, or you make it incentivize players to host events and whatever. But the kind of game you would design and the kind of tournaments you would even think about hosting, or prizes, or do you have a monthly list of restricted and like whatever, is influenced by whether or not you're trying to take up the slot on the schedule on Tuesday night. Or are you trying to, I think about like FFG tried to do this and they did it kind of, but it's like they had the regional. And if you win the regional, you qualify for this thing. But it wasn't even qualify. It was too small to qualify. Like Fab is like, you have to win a Pro Quest to play at the Pro Tour. They were like, you get a first round bye. Because we're not going to tell no to anyone that actually wants to come to this event. Because we don't have enough players willing to travel to Minnesota in November to make it happen.
Volume.
Like anyways, I think it would just affect.
I think designing it as a board game is really the most relevant thing there ultimately. Obviously, the LCG packs are like probably the worst way to do it, to get stores to continue to do this and care about it. But there's some interesting organized play things. I mean, I think the problem is like, it's just not on the sell sheet. So like your Hub World organized play kit is coming from enough people in the area trying to go to a store to get the store owner to carry Hub World organized play so that they can come in and play the game and get the chance at the shiny thing or the token set or the range ruler or whatever. I'm just not sure that juice is ever worth the squeeze. If you could instead have those 8 potential Hub World players go meet at the Starbucks and do the same thing, and you didn't have to worry about all of the store-related sales things, then that might be just as good or better. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think the thing is, I'm convinced that it's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to get a store to truly care about these kinds of games. And so, like, let's just stop worrying about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where, if your intended interaction with the store is just, we have a board game like product, they look at it like a board game. They price it like a board game.
That's
they put
the
it on
right
shelf like
idea.
a board game.
Yeah.
And then
$100 Homeworld box.
Past that, you simply have an incredible experience that players are going to be obsessed with. I think the grassroots approach is more appropriate. Like, let the players figure it out and help them figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, just like with Netrunner, there will be stores that host 20, 30 person Netrunner tournaments every week. Right?
Yeah.
And that's cool. They can charge entry, and you could have stuff for them. And that's where I think there are interesting takes on this, like Gudnak with the booster boxes. If Netrunner had booster boxes that were draftable and collectible, they would have done well.
Mm-hmm. Even just like prize packs, like the gym packs 100%. For Fab, yeah.
Like that would have made Netrunner, our lives in Netrunner as a store so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
But part of that is because also Netrunner had the volume.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I already have 20 players wanting to play Netrunner here. And that's where it's, okay, now there's booster boxes.
You think the volume starts with the game, or does the publisher, basically, is it the quality of the game that creates the volume, or is it the publisher's efforts that pushes it to create the volume over time?
I think it can be both. I think both ingredients are probably necessary.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, it's really hard to market a game enough to achieve success if the game is bad.
The collectibles are good at doing this, though.
Yeah, for sure, because they're collectible no matter what.
Because the game's like, well, okay. Play some.
But I also think it's hard for a game to be so good that it does its own marketing in and of itself. I also think
that's a great question.
That it's hard for a game to be good enough to account for a bad product positioning business model. Like, we played a lot of those. The Dead Game series. Like, the game is amazing.
Yeah.
But if you, like, as a good example of this to me is Star Wars Destiny. One of the best games I've ever played. Not even close. It's like so high on my list. But they made, across 4 years, so many mistakes.
Yeah.
Executionally. And also, I think looking back, like, they didn't actually own the collectability element of it.
You're right. Which Unlimited is doing more, for sure.
And it was still very successful. But you have the IP, you have the marketing they were doing, you have the momentum of FFG going, and the game was great.
Yeah.
But it kind of comes back to, it's just funnies of marketing where you can successfully sell something and promote it. But if the experience I'm getting is not what I expected or worse than I expected, that only lasts for so long.
It doesn't last for that long.
Similarly, some of the best music that has ever been created, most people have no idea about. That's a marketing problem. So it can go both directions for me.
All right. Other comments, John? Are you on this, or do I need to be?
Yeah, I got one. This is, I was going to pop this earlier. We were talking about
OmniGamer88.
Talking about marketing them as board games. Some of the expectations around that.
Board gamers are also not used to customizing a deck beforehand. Most times they don't know what game they're playing in 5 minutes at a game store. That is correct. And that's a big barrier of entry, being unprepared to play a card game. The thing is, though, I do think board games have gotten a lot better at, like, a lot more into drafting as a mechanic. I mean, board gamers draft all the time, right? Like most of these Euro games and engine builders and stuff, there's a big pool of cards in the middle of the table. You're drafting it as you go to build your engine so that you can, create a synthesis of effects that is amazing. That's all that draft is in an LCG or TCG format as well. So if you can wrap it in that wrapper and basically say this is a drafting board game looking experience, but then also, if you want to, you can take this box of cards and you can just put it together however you want, and you can play against people who have done the same thing. Very similar to that TCG with a fixed component.
Yeah.
If this is a 4-person drafting card board game, that then you can also do constructed with, Hubworld definitely feels a little bit different.
Well, and one thing that's kind of interesting on that is, like, deck builders in the board game arena. That's funny because that's an actual thing, board game arena. But deck builder is a concept where you basically, the game is building the deck. Like you're drafting cards as you go. I think traditionally LCGs, even I assume Hubworld, is approaching it in the way of, like, make it feel like a TCG draft. But I think there's a world where you can make a game of the drafting.
You could just make it the game. Yeah, dude, you just totally, they should do that. They should do that.
You're like, one more thing is like,
put them on the table, flip them, and if you don't take one, get a bonus.
The thing you just drafted is the game. You can actually play with the deck that you drafted.
Yeah.
And, like, the first time that hits, that could run away, where it's like you frame it as a board game deck builder, and you get to the normal part where the game's over, and it what's that game? There's two characters, side scroller, old. where you're fighting and then you beat the big boss and then it's like, oh, but there can only be one, and then you have to fight each other.
Wasn't that Double Dragon?
Yeah, I think it was Double Dragon. So it's like that where if you're a board gamer, you know what a deck builder is. You do the thing, right? This is like Legendary, Marvel Legendary. You like build it. It's like the loop is like you're scoring points, and then it's like actually, okay, you won that part of this game. You get some advantage going in. Now you guys fight.
And then it's like, and this is the final, like this is the format that you get onboarded into.
And then past that, it's like, oh, of course you can now construct decks however you want outside of the typical game. But
fascinating.
That's a way to like make it draftable in a way that is a board game approachable. You don't need to know how to play Hub World when you're drafting because there's a whole point system you're doing with the draft.
That's a fascinating idea.
And then off to the race.
Huh. Zach saying EBR is honestly probably the most approachable LCG for non-TCG board gamers. Okay, that's a lot of things for our friends listening at home. Earthborn Rangers is probably the most approachable living card game for non-trading card game board gamers, being guided through the initial deck and a relatively slow drip of new cards to slot in.
I want to be clear. Non-collectible, expandable, cooperative card games are like a totally different category.
Easy mode.
Because there's 1,000 reasons.
Because you don't need diversity of opponents.
It goes back to your list, though. It's the gameplay loop. The gameplay loop is intended to be one person or two people or three people that play with the same exact people every time. And they're playing against the machine.
Yeah.
Different thing. Even like look at Lord of the Rings and Arkham. They don't have so many of the problems that the LCGs have because you can buy whatever you want.
And they don't need organized play.
And you just buy this brick and you tell the story, and you buy this brick and you tell this story, and you off to the race.
And they don't need organized play, critically. All right, any other comments worth having? Let me scroll through and see.
You got a production switch behind the camera.
Crime shorter. I feel good about this combo, man. I'm good with it. I think if I was designing an LCG and I listened to this, hopefully I would get some good ideas.
Yeah, and if you are, leave a comment. I'd love to know if it was helpful. I just want to reassert after last week. I'm not saying the LCG model, non-collectible, expandable, can't be done well, can't be done successful and sustainable. And it's not really fitting into this framework necessarily, but it just strictly makes less money than TCG. Even if you have like you would have to have so many more players to even get close. It's just how it is. So I think a big piece of this too is as long as your goal is not make as much money as possible, but also recognize you're going to have limited resources compared to TCGs. And so you kind of need to fight on a different plane.
A little guerrilla combat, yeah.
And you need to be very intentional with your resources. Like, again, Star Wars Unlimited is probably making so much money. They could hire a team of 10 people to run the organized play program. Whereas Netrunner, at its biggest, that would have been insane.
I think there was one guy, wasn't it?
Well, it's probably
Matt?
probably like 2 or 3 people doing it for 7 games at a time.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's not even like.
And they had scale even to make that even a little bit easier.
So just know that going in. I think it'd be very smart, and I think you can do it. I'm optimistic. We continue to support games that play in these areas because I do think they are serving an experience and a community and a kind of player that a lot of the games out there don't, and oftentimes are the most innovative of the games.
Yeah. Well, they kind of have to be because you don't have all these other elements that people would buy the product for. So if it's not fun to play it in a constructed environment, it's not fun to play it at all.
Yeah.
Whereas there are a lot of TCGs that are not that fun to play and constructed, but are wildly successful. So yes, to close, again, trying to get better at kind of like hammering out some points. I think to your point, yes, the LCG model can be successful. Number one, don't make the game itself its own worst enemy. No silos. Make the deck building as interesting and open as possible. Consider ways that you might change the available cards in any given card pool, knowing that all of your players have them all. It's a lot easier to say you can use this block and not that block, or you can use these 3 cards but not those 3 cards, or you can't use these 2 cards together. That is something that you should be really thinking about and considering. In the spirit of that, make sure all of your products are interesting to all of your players. You can't get away with a fab only 2 factions of 20 in this release. You can't do it, and you can't get away with your faction expansions. I mean, you can do it, but like it's just hurting you in the long run. So those are kind of the product design pieces. The second piece of this is more of a packaging branding kind of thing. So it is a little product design too. how much of the existing audience and the existing kind of language that's being spoken out there can you kind of claw back into your potential audience? So you drop out the limited players and stuff with your non-TCG model. How can you get them back? Can you introduce a draft format like Hubworld is doing with their 4-player cube? Can you introduce limited with booster boxes like Gudnak is doing? What of these things that are normally not a part of a fixed game model can you potentially bring back in? Ideally not with auxiliary products, because that's another SKU and another manufacturing and another design, etc. So I do like the way that Homeworld's approaching that, although I do know Gudnak's having a lot of success with their booster product. So we'll see. I mean, that's a beautiful thing, is we are going to find out over the next 5 to 10 years how all of this is playing out. And then finally is organized play. And thinking, like, it is an important part of a constructed card game. Organized play has to happen. I think the bare minimum is flagpole events, 1 or 2 a year. I think that is the bare minimum. Digital clients are an option. Community ambassadors are an option. Store outreach is an option, and event kits are an option. And we don't have the answers to this, but how do you triangulate those things to make it compelling for stores? If you're the person who has the next great idea on that, you might be the next really successful LCG, right? So I think that's it. Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Any other thoughts, Zach? Final closing?
Not really. But if you do have a solution for that equation, you can use the contact form on our website to see if you want to work with us. And then, of course, definitely head over to our Discord channel. Industry discussion channel is where a ton of this conversation keeps going, with a lot of other people who have a lot of other takes than just Steven and I. And it's been really amazing since we kind of relaunched this format to see that discussion lighting up. It's been really informative and productive for me, even just getting to see a lot of different opinions on this. So if you've been participating in that, thank you. And if you haven't, if you're listening to this and you want to be a part of it after the live stream is over, definitely head over to the Discord channel.
That's right. Cheers, everyone. We'll see you next time.